broken vigor, where crimes are baked in every show. Mysteries rise and truth unfolding. Ready, set, it's time to go. We say it's time to go. Whistling truth, battering news, mixing stories, solving the lies. In this kitchen, secrets are broken with a spark in our eyes. In the broken baker's kitchen, the secrets crumble like sunrise. We'll sift through clues to find the rules with a spark in our eyes. The broken rise. Broken rise. Welcome to the broken baker. Get ready. Let's go.
I'm Jimmy. How y'all doing?
The most important people in this case that everybody seems to have forgotten in this room is the jury. So we're going to take a 15-minute break and both sides take a pregnant pause and think about the jury.
Good morning, good evening, good
hello.
afternoon, wherever you are, whoever you are, what if any you might be. And Mo, did
Yes.
you have a sexual relationship?
I would like to plead the 5th, 7th, and possibly against the Geneva Convention.
Hey, everyone over on Mo's channel. Thank you for joining us.
Yes, thank
And
you, guys.
today, hopefully, will be short. I hope they're not going to get the brother. I don't think they're going to get the other one either. And I don't know
No,
what else they could put in.
I can't imagine that you would use hearsay if you can't get the brother in, then this convict who done heard something from someone else in the jail. I mean, I think that the court would probably be more forgiving of that testimony if it weren't hearsay. But I don't, I have not, Nicola Maxwell, I have not done that. We are supposed to get snow tomorrow. It's probably not going to stick, but I have a bunch of videos that I need to get going whenever this trial ends. So it's on my list of things to do. It's just, I need like 10 more hours and my non-existent assistant to really coordinate things for me and possibly do laundry.
I did my morning show this morning, and then I just had to do 2 videos, well, 1 video and a podcast, and just had to cut it in and upload it. And I had my breakfast, and I thought, going back to bed and get those 2 hours extra. Just as I'm about to go to bed, can you come to court today? Yeah, sure I can. And so I got 45 minutes instead of 2 hours. It happens sometimes.
It does. And
But,
I am not the captain. I am cool with second mate or whatever. You were in the Navy. What goes after captain?
I was a musician.
Didn't they teach you the ranks though?
Lieutenant, captain, lieutenant.
They don't call them mates?
A mate is that's what I was. I was just the
Oh.
lowliest low.
Oh, well, not to mention I am the child of 2 Navy veterans, and I'm like, I am not the captain. I'm whatever the guy behind him is. The second lieutenant who doesn't know anything. Or no, the first lieutenant.
The
The
second
second might
lieutenant
know
is
some.
the second lieutenant is the guy who gets you people killed. The first lieutenant is the guy who survived 15 minutes. Observation station. This is the Laken Riley case. A 22-year-old medical student out of Augusta, Georgia. Well, not. She went to college in Augusta, Georgia. Go Bulldogs. Where she was out running an early morning, 9:10 in the morning. She hits her emergency dial up on her mobile phone, and 5 seconds later, her Garmin shows she stops abruptly. And 18 minutes after that, her heart stops, or her garment doesn't track her heart anymore. She's later found with massive blunt force trauma to her head so badly that her skull was fractured and pieces of her skull was punched into, at least into the underlying layer, maybe into her brain.
Yeah.
Uh, a man named Jose Ibarra was seen in the area for almost 2 hours before that, testing a door into a dorm apartment, dorm room, whatever you call stuff like that. Later seen right after, 27 minutes after her heart stopped, crossing a road, and is seen on video camera throwing away his jacket in a dumpster, which is later found with her DNA on it. When they do the DNA extraction on her, they find his DNA under her right hand's fingernails. He has scratches to his face, to his neck, to his arms. Horrible case. It's a bench trial, so there's no jury here. The state has rested. Defense went yesterday. They had some witnesses who didn't say anything. They are kind of trying to pin it on the brother, but no evidence links the brother to the Redrum.
Yeah, and the defense is doing the best with what they have. I mean, this is a heavily they got him all the guilty. And they are trying to bring things up, but it seems like a waste of time. And I wonder if the court is going to hold that against him, especially the last female witness, who was there basically to get back at Diego for stepping out and twerking without her.
Yeah. Yeah, Navy captains probably is the rank of either a major or colonel, depending on the size of the ship. Because I think it also depends on, in the Navy, what type of vessel you can steer.
I guess we can't learn everything from Smexy Navy books.
I think you have to be, don't you have to be like a very low-ranking admiral to do a fleet carrier fleet? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Admiral is the highest level.
I'm captain of the Lido deck because I think they had the most fun on the Love Boat. And if I'm going to be captain of anything, it's going to be, the limbo contest and maybe the shirtless guy contest. I'm an expert. I laid the foundation. I have all the books. I can. Oh my goodness.
Hey, Gada. Gada is from South Africa.
Oh, welcome. That is the cool thing about this. Yeah, we cover some of the hardest, most insane cases. And thank you so much, Colorado Mountain Girl, for becoming a member. Welcome to the Church of Mo. We have dark chocolate sarcasm and, well, some maladaptive coping mechanisms, but they're hilarious. So thank you.
I kind of regret eating that full bag of salted licorice yesterday.
I told Mr. Mo about it, and I guess he and his dad really like, we have salted licorice here. Now, I don't think it has the blood of Satan or whatever you said was the powdery stuff. But he said, oh yeah, my dad and I love it. And I was like, how are we even married?
Because when you get a mixed bag, he'll take all the salty stuff and you'll take all the sweet stuff.
Yeah, but licorice and salt are not. He can have it all. Look, it's the same reason I like malted milk balls. He hates them. No one's going to steal those from me. I can have all of my own Whoppers.
Malted meatballs and
milk balls.
Never in a million years have I heard that name.
Well, they're generally called Whoppers or Maltsters I like the Maltsters because they seem to have more malt in them. Welcome to Candy Chat, where we talk about our candy.
Why should I watch a trial on anything else but good TV or law and crime? Because we fill all the downtime with barely coherent speech.
And if they are streaming the Susan Smith parole hearing, I will be doing a roast of that. I have all the thoughts, and basically all the petty to spread.
Who,
Oh, thank you, Brett.
who, if any, is Susan Smith?
Susan Smith was a woman from South
Okay.
Carolina uh, who was separated from her husband, had two small boys, I think 3 years old and 17 or 15 months. Her new boyfriend decided he didn't want to date a woman who had children, and she was going to, take them all out, like a whole family deletion. However, when pushing her car into a lake in the middle of the night, she somehow managed to fall out. Now, so, then lied to the police, lied to her ex-husband, said, an African American man had stolen her car. So early 90s Southern police basically went to the African American section of the community and just started like knocking on doors, asking every man there, you know, it's kids, so they're going to be aggressive in
Yeah.
their questioning, I have no doubt. All the while knowing she sat there and they did a reenactment with a similar car, dummies, and during the daylight, and it took about 6 minutes for that car to fully go
Oh, I saw
underwater.
that video on Twitter yesterday. I
Yeah,
thought,
yeah.
what's this? Because I just saw that car slowly, and it's saying 6 minutes to, yeah, that's a horrible, horrible way to go.
Well, Miss Smith has been laboring under this, burden for 30 years. So she has decided that she is totally due for parole. She is, a reformed woman. She's stopped sleeping with correctional officers to the point that it is standard operating procedure she not be left alone with any male employees. Like, this is how much she has tried to do that. Unfortunately, she did try to sell her story to a documentary, I guess, director, and you're not allowed to do that in South Carolina. So she got a big reprimand and all of her, electronic and outward communication taken away right before the parole. But there has been a public outcry. People do not want this woman out. Uh, it was actually like the first case of a parent saying, "Oh, they done that I remember in my lifetime. They were done kidnapped and they knew exactly where they were." So,
Yeah.
I mean, I was, I think maybe 7 or 8, and it was wall to wall. You got to see this woman in frizzy 90s hair, "Bring my babies back." And I mean, it was just,
But can I ask a question? And maybe I know we have a few correctional officers or former correctional officers here. I know you ladies like a bad boy and men are stupid. But why, oh, why would you ever smacks on the job? I don't know how the rules are in Denmark. In Denmark, correctional officers have a sweet pension. They have back from the olden days where it was uh, uh, almost godlike to be working for the public sector. So they keep their working salary for forever. So it's one of the best pensions you can be on. Only politicians have a better pension in Denmark, and you'll lose it if you do this. And I'm thinking, if I had a job and I had a pension to look forward to, maybe I have a marriage, why the hell would I smack a female inmate or a male inmate to
now in
just to
Denmark,
have a
is it
little smexiness?
considered grape? Because here it is considered grape, and the male officers did get charged and I think prosecuted. So not only do you have your entire career, you will be charged with grape because of the power indifference. Now,
Hmm.
I have seen pictures of Suzanne Smith. She, for a demon, she has an interesting skin suit. I mean, she's not ugly, but what they have kind of isolated with Susan Smith is she's like the Amber Heard. She knows exactly what you want. She will love bomb you. She will become who you want. And some men apparently just, I mean, it takes two to tango, but some men really just like that sort of blind adoration love, and they're willing to do stupid stuff. Women will do the same thing. She's just a predator who has never seen anyone in her life as a real human, but a tool to be used and manipulated.
But you had that OnlyFans chick in Britain as well, where she smuggled in a camera so they could film her getting
Oh,
banged in the cell. And I'm
yeah.
just lady, and she was a pretty lady.
Oh,
Uh,
she had a badonkadonk, not gonna lie.
no, and ladies, I will. We had a meeting in the Misogynist or Us group, and we decided, yes, you can have them. You might not have Brad Pitt, but if you're going for an inmate, you could just as well go down to the local pub and find something of equal value, and you will find it. Especially looking like her. It's the same with all these weird teachers who bangs their young male students. Can we can we are all very fast to say, well, the church. What the hell is wrong with female? We don't have an
Yeah,
epidemic in Denmark
ba
of female teachers banging teenagers.
Baker, I have a 12-year-old boy. All he talks about is Roblox and Fortnite. How can you have? I was trying to be kind, totally Russian bot. But what do you talk about? And you know what? It's really gross because we do have the double standards. And I do
Yeah.
believe that this is just as predatory as a male teacher. I mean, there would be no like, where were those male teachers? You don't go up to a woman. This never happens. So my daughter's having smexx with her soccer coach. Oh, I see. He is hot with a capital T. I'd get all hot and smexy with him if I could. Oh, if only I were 14 again. No, these things have never happened in a woman, female, not PDF file sort of relationship. No, no, we don't. Because it's gross. And again, between the Axe body spray or having to remind them to use a shower with soap, what is attractive?
Well, it's the young virility. They make me feel no, no. And Brandon, au pairs is a different thing because that's what rich parents get their young boys. We're talking about people working at the school. But no, I'm just baffled because again, when I see the pictures, most of them are 7 or 8s, even on their mug shots. But I have that it's the stunted mind growth we have all over the Western world right now. No one has told these ladies grow up.
No.
So they went
Yeah.
to high school, then they went to college, and then they went back into high school to teach.
Well, and I think that America, the media, and a lot of people missed a really big opportunity with Mary Kay Letourneau. You gave her a slap on the wrist. You didn't treat it like a male teacher, and she got pregnant twice, married her abuse victim, and I will
How's
tell you
that?
guys,
How's that not the rooming word with a G we can't say on YouTube?
it is, but we didn't recognize it for what it was. We thought that
We
this
still
was
don't.
no, and
That's
I am, you know what? For everyone who wants to talk about male privilege, let's talk about female privilege, where you can be a gross, disgusting person, abuse children, and if you are attractive, if you are young, if you say you are drinking or had mental, issues, which you would have to want to be in a serious relationship with a 13 damn year old at 30, we don't. It is beyond maddening that we don't have
yeah.
the same standards. And then, but some crazy person on, you know, Twitter is going to claim that women have less privileges than men. We don't have to go to war. I can vote without being part of the draft. I have been pissed off about that since I was a young one because to me and to my mental thinking, which is why I say I was 47 when I was born, with privileges come responsibility. If we have an entire segment of the population that gets to sidestep, one sort of kind of responsibility that you have to your country, then I find that extremely upsetting. Now, we don't have to join bucket brigades. No one's rounding us up for a posse. No one's taking female prisoners and making them work, in the fire brigades in California. So, miss me. I have, 6 children. 3 of them are girls and 3 of them are boys. There are different challenges with each of those. Why can't we just accept that there are different challenges and different things, but no one is different than the other? I got so pissed off on Twitter yesterday because it was, or maybe it was the day before, it was International Men's Health Day. And every single one was like, what about women? And I'm like, fellow fallopian haver, we have 900 and bajillion days. We've got international, insert the blank, whatever variety of Skittle you want, female day. We have to praise women. We can't show that they have flaws. Look at Hollywood. Every woman is awesome, and she just need to realize her awesomeness in order to be a badass. No, how about we get less prison sentences if for the same crime? We
Yeah,
have a
that's
lower
30%
self-deletion.
lower, I think. And a former watcher of this channel came in and claimed that females got higher sentencing. You have to be actively trying to be stupider than stupid to claim that, because take any case in the world, put them next to each other, a woman will always be sentenced lesser than a man. But ladies, for those of you who say, I want equal rights and equal lefts, come to Denmark, because we just instated that next year women will join the draft because Putin.
Well, that and family courts. If you want to look at a place where men are historically and by design discriminated against, do you know how many terrible, horrible, no good mothers I have seen, but the court's still like, well, she has a uterus. I know she's, on the crystal, and maybe she has a kind of convict boyfriend, but shouldn't we given her the 11 to 12th chance? And the dad's over here like, I work 2 jobs. I want to stay single because I want it to be about my kids. Could I please just see my kids? I'm afraid you're going to have to pay more child support because, your ex-wife is pregnant with convict's kid, and we have to protect the children.
And that's funny that we never talk about that. And again, what day did UN recognize on International Men's Day? Toilet Day. We have a effing day for toilets, and that's on Men's Day. It's just like I see a trend here.
And the
And
sad thing is that look, I want to be judged, and this is what pisses me off about most elections and things. I have a uterus. Well, that's maybe 1% of my identity. I don't want to be talked to like a walking, talking, voting uterus. I would like my fallopian tubes to be my own. I don't give a crap what you feel about yours or what rights you feel you have. But talk to me like a logical human being instead of as a voting vajayjay. Because nothing will piss me off more than, you're a woman.
yeah, as if
Well
you're not a
spotted.
human. And again, I go back to the good old days. The civil rights movement wasn't about men versus women or something. No, it was about individuals. And I know
Absolutely.
we were coming a long way, and now we're regressing. I'm a father of 2 strong, independent women. What made me most proud was when my oldest daughter had met up with all her. She went out, got a 2-year school, and then went out, did 2 years in a company. So she got her degree. The rest of them went to uni, and they were sitting there. Oh, the student pay is so low. I haven't hardly any money, and it's so hard. And it's just because I'm a woman, I'm suspected to. And she called me when she was driving home. She said, I liked these girls a year ago. Now they have spent a year in uni. I can't stand them. What the hell? Why don't they have any responsibility in their life? You're always talking about, I'm going to lose my rights. What rights? Because I can't do this or do that. Fine. Do you know what I would do if and I have been actually thinking about it, because the temperature in Denmark isn't really good right now with a lot of things. I'd move. Yeah, but now everyone have that ability. Yes, you have if you're willing to risk it.
And if you're willing to not be comfortable.
Yeah.
Look, newsflash for 20-year-olds, newsflash for, kids starting out. Yes, it is what your parents have is lovely. Do you know how your parents start out? How everyone starts out? With a futon and a daggone milk crate, saving up for a Totino's pizza because it's a special treat, because we were all broke. Yes, you see what your parents have worked a lifetime for. You're going to start out your journey in hoping and praying that you can get the luxury of crappy IKEA furniture. Okay? That's part of it. It's 20s. We all struggled. We all, had to say no or do, long jobs with stupid people. It's called life. Deal with it, for the love of Cheetos.
I went out to celebrate my 18 years birthday, and the credit card machine ate my credit card because it was so overdrafted. I had no money, and I was an apprentice. I had to work the next 2 years to skimp by, pay off that debt. Then I did some odd summer jobs after I had been in the military because we have our mandatory draft, which I volunteered, but still. Um, Doing that I made less as a soldier than I did as an apprentice. The only thing, I didn't have to get up as early. When I came out of the military, I went back to do like a high school thing because there was no baking jobs. So in the summertime, I worked in a bakery all summer long. Went to school. I had the unemployment comp. Did that for 2 years, and then I said, "Well, this is boring." Called my buddy, said, "Can you find me a job in Copenhagen?" Moved to Copenhagen within a month just to try it. Stayed there for a year. Wasn't really me. Was just in a rut because I drank too much. I was with the wrong group of friends. My life was just drinking, playing football 2 times a week and once in the weekend, and then drinking some more, working odd jobs. And I said, F it. 23 years old, time to grow up. I called the military and said, "Do you need a baker on a rotation?" "Yeah, sure." "You want to go to Bosnia?" "Yeah, sure."
Well, and here's a news flash for all of the people who may be shocked about the current last voting cycle that we had. Do you want to know some of the smartest people I've ever met? It's the uneducated or undereducated, the people that didn't go to college, the people that maybe had to sacrifice for their family or life got in the way. I have gained more wisdom, more practical knowledge, more grace and understanding from these so-called uneducated morons that, decided to vote a different way. I have learned more from people who never got a degree, from people who didn't even graduate high school, but they own their own business. They have, incredible wisdom, incredible grace for when I, hadn't pulled my in behind out of my or my head out of my behind. They still listened to me and all my stupid stuff when I would just pontificate on stupidness that I thought I had learned. No, no, the people that have had to struggle, the people that have had to say, "Oh, well, my house is foreclosed on. I have two small little girls. I have to go live my life and figure shit out," may not have learned this in a classroom, but dear Lord, did we learn. And life is the best teacher. And you don't look down on someone just because you think you're better than them. The person that's doing the janitorial job in your, area in your school, I tell my sons, you tell them thank you. And you appreciate those people, because
Yeah.
I can't with the entitlement here. And I know that our chat, and I'm sure a bunch of other parents, I'm sure it's just the loud squawkers on Twit Twat that make it seem like the entire younger generation is lost. But I'm hoping to instill that respect for other people, but maybe stop talking down to the rest of us who didn't go to an Ivy League school, who don't have a bunch of debt. Maybe
Actually, Brendan is right here because it's the good old saying, hard times make hard men make good times make weak men. And that's the problem if you have too much. That's why I don't tell my kids, again, I'm a stupid baker and now I'm a retiree, but I might have been living wisely. Um, but I've always told them there's a hot bed and a hot meal. The rest we can talk about. I would never
Yeah.
ever say, well, here's 10,000. You can go live on that, because they have to know that sometimes it's
Yeah.
also okay to call your parents and say, I fucking blew it. I did it when I got divorced. I called my parents and said, I blew it. Said there's a bed. And then I started over. No shame in that. Just get your ass together and get out there. The problem is
And
all
I
these
know,
people who, but dad, it's only 50,000 in credit card debt. Do you know how
yeah.
much I have to work for $50,000?
Oh, well, and the people that are canceling their family out over who or who not they may have voted for, you are canceling out your ride or die to get clicks. So have fun with that in a couple years when you need something desperately and you've told these people to F on off.
Why haven't you taken your son's driver's license away now?
Wait,
I've never
he
hear
filled
anything.
the engine with water?
I don't know.
Like the
Every time
radiator?
there's something with his son, it's, oh, he put the wrong thing in the engine. Oh, he lost a wheel. He can't find his car. Take his driver's license. Well, it's our truth. Isn't that what they say? That's how we live. That's why we. And I can see it on the amount of people my daughters have said, but all the other people, yeah, but you're not getting it. You're a bad dad. Yep, but you'll thank me later. And believe you me, right now, I'm grandpa to a girl who says, yeah, we're gonna do that instead of all that pussyfooting around babies as well. Oh, could you all please be quiet? My baby's trying to sleep. No, it's your baby. It's your problem. It's not everyone in the restaurant. You better train them
No,
to be
and
in a restaurant.
well, that train them. Okay, the only unsolicited and not asked for baby advice I will ever give will happen right now because I hate unsolicited parenting advice. Train your baby to sleep in normal everyday noises. You will never get perfect silence. Hell, youngest most feral would never have slept if he wasn't used to chaos. They can sleep in chaos. It's okay. Real life is noisy and messy, and they are joining the human race of noisy and messy people. Welcome to it. I get, like, don't practice, Limp, the drum solo in Limp from Fiona Apple while he's sleeping or they're sleeping, but every normal day thing. I did it with my first one, and it was a nightmare because she just wanted to sleep only with white noise on. And I was like, oh, for the love of Lord, this is never happening again. And when you have
No,
other
but
kids, it's never going to happen again anyway.
no, but it's the entitlement again that, oh, I can bring my kid into a restaurant, and if it starts screaming tough shit, I'm gonna sit here and it's all of your old problem. No, you get up, you walk out.
Yeah, Baker, I have more grace for little toddler parents and like little new baby parents in restaurants. But when your school age child is running around acting like they've had 19 pixie sticks and a Mountain Dew, that is where I want to go ham on some parents. Because I'm like, I get 1 week or one Wednesday a month where I go out with Mr. Mo with no children. Maybe I would have a margarita. Maybe we would just, attack the like chips and salsa like lemur or like a pack of lemmings like we normally do. But if you can't have your school age children, youngest most feral and I have sat in the van and had my dinner boxed up because he was acting a fool. He's never done it again.
No, it's funny how you can actually teach them. Don't do that again. We when I was in city council, my girls were, I don't think, well, maybe the oldest was a teenager at that time. But I took them to everything I could, all the fancy dinners with all the hobnobs and stuff like that. And yeah, you have to try it. You're gonna sit here, you're gonna eat, and when we had done the main course, I said, yeah, now you can go outside, play, because that taught them, yeah, you can sit at a table, you can participate with the grown-ups, you can be respectful to other people. And I think it comes down to bad parenting for most of these kids' bad behavior. It's because kids were back when Mo and I had kids. It was mostly because it'll be fine. It's safe. That's how you got kids back in the olden days. Now it's with a calendar, a thermometer, and Kegels. I don't know. Um, and and when you have kids that way, yeah, you're more scared than anything. But it's not like, oh, we've been trying for 5 years and finally it's here and we're gonna put it in bubble wrap. No, you just well, that's a new thing I'm gonna have to figure out. But kids are becoming projects today because we're just gonna have that one kid because mom is gonna do her career, dad is gonna go do his career, then we're gonna go be yogis in India for 5 years, and then we're ready for a kid. And you're 45 years old, and none of you are ready for a kid that screams 3 hours. And
No, and look, there is a happy medium between gentle parenting where like, Skylar, when you talk back to me, that, makes me feel very sad. Don't you understand how I feel sad? And, the not so gentle parenting of the early 50s. Look, my daughter knows when she crosses a line with me. In fact,
yeah,
when she asked me what the hell I do all day, and I took a deep breath, summoning, all the spirits of my ancestor mamas, and I about took my flip-flop off, like she knew. Like, I'm gonna step back slowly and maybe throw chocolate at mom and see if she'll get distracted.
yeah,
You,
and that's
it's okay. There's a difference. I have you privileges equal responsibilities. Housework equals privileges in my house.
yeah.
And you can talk back, you can try it out. I mean, it's not going to go well for you. I don't expect, or I don't handle disrespect. Same with my daughter, I share with her father and her bonus mom. I don't allow her to talk badly about them. I say you can have issues with them and you can talk to me about them, but you will not be disrespectful of them in my house. So you can you can't roll your eyes when you talk about your stepmom. You can't call her names.
No, and that's the thing. I told my buddy, said the kids doesn't know why you divorced the mom or the dad. Why go and give them that bad experience where you kind of forces them into hating the other person? I I could talk shit about
I
my ex-wife to my kids all the time, but I just every time I picked them up, I said, "How's mom doing? Oh, that's nice to hear. Oh, that's good. How's her boyfriend? Oh, that's nice. Oh, you're gonna do that? Okay, that's fine." Because you force the kid to have a strained relationship with someone they deep down love, and that's
yeah,
that's
I
just
mean,
as bad.
I caught a lot of flack. I mean, a butt ton of flack, but from my family, but I had never allowed them to talk badly about my first husband in front of the girls. And I've never been truly open with a lot of the things that happened in the marriage unless they ask certain things or I think they're age appropriate or, can see that maybe in a relationship, these are some things you need to look for. But that part of my life is probably going to stay with me and not go to my girls unless I think it's something they need to look out for. Because every kid deserves to have their dad or their mom and not have to feel torn loyalty over the entire thing. I have never understood that.
No, and it's the same. That's why when my kids got old enough, I could have said, "You're mine till you're 18. You'll be here every weekend. It's my time." I said, "I'm gonna lose time when they're 28 or 38 if I force them to do it when they're 16, because that was a mean. I wanted to be with my kids. My kids wanted to be with their friends. I knew how it was to be 15, 16 years old, and
Yeah.
and you wanted to go around. And now right now I'm talking to baby mama. She's sending me pictures of a
I,
laughing little baby. So
I,
I'm
I
happy.
will say, being on the mom side when you're being ignored or just asked for rides, it's not as fun. I I
No, but
genuinely,
when you're 25, they will
oh,
come back and say,
yeah.
"Oh, my kid, he came running into the living room with his underpants on his head. Oh, I thought you were talking about your little brother. What did you do? Yeah, just let him run tired. He'll find out at some point."
Yeah, I mean, we had entire years of our house with three feral boys that I was just assuming we were becoming a nudist colony with how much they didn't want to wear clothes.
Yeah, and that's we have these conversations as well sometimes, and I don't spur them on, but sometimes my my daughter had a big breakdown when she was a few days into it because that happens, hormonal and all of that.
Oh,
And
yeah.
she called daddy because mom would just do that thing women do. What? You're not back at work? I thought you gave birth 2 days ago. Mama was
Okay,
running
Baker, some
4 marathons.
women, and they're pronounced cahoons, will do that.
Yeah, but those women who said, "Oh, yeah, that's all the labor I did because I didn't have time for it," and that all the dads are sitting in the corner. I'm pretty sure I was in the same room. That's not how it went down. But she called daddy and said, and and that's nice that she knows if she need a rock, the rock is here.
Yeah.
And she didn't need anything else than just throw a lot of shit out
No,
there and it'll be okay.
no, you are responsible now. Your world has changed in a millisecond. Like you've had 9 months to kind of get it wrapped around your head, but they lay that baby on your. Oh, we're back. Let's see if we
Court is
get
back,
Diego or Diego's
back
friend.
again.
He'd
Yeah,
look just like Colonel Sanders if he would commit and grow a goatee.
he looks like I still say he looks like Hannibal from the A Team.
Yeah,
Just getting old.
he just needs a cigar and fingerless gloves.
No, they have fingers.
Oh,
And
they did?
an M4A1, I think it was the rifle. No, an M4.
But after talking to the state yesterday evening, we, instead of calling them, we have a stipulation that we are going to introduce to the court, but we would like to approach to sort of give the court a little more information. Okay. All right.
So they're not going to call them. They're going to approach, and then they have a stipulation about. I don't know if it's the brother or the one in the basement.
I'm thinking both would be inadmissible because you think the federal criminal probably wants representation too because he doesn't want to run his mouth on a possible perjury charge if all of this is, maybe to help his brother.
No, and again, the other one can't say anything without perjuring, not perjuring, but being hearsay. So I don't know what it is that they want to do. That's so fun. He shouldn't be able to smile now, but he's smiling in a milk coma. I like babies.
Oh. I see the pictures of babies and I'm like, oh gosh, I want that. And then I remember the poop explosion in Walmart. Because, physics don't apply to babies because you'd think
All the
that,
way up here.
yeah. And up the front. And I'm like, don't you have little berries to stop that? What the hell is going on here? And you are just, yeah, it is absolutely not you forget all that. That's the power of cute little babies is that you forget all of that, or you have wine or a margarita, and then the second one's on the way.
Yeah, that's Is this the safe week? Yeah. Mama had a margarita. Let's do it. Whoops.
Hey, middle son margarita Jose,
Cuervo.
in the deep end is fine. He's doing just fine, and he loves chips and salsa, which, makes sense.
What does the yellow light mean? Slow down. Oh, it means you can make it if you just accelerate. Hey, Jamester, how are
Hi.
you doing?
How are you?
Okay.
You're back from SEAL Team 6, saving the
Yeah.
SEALs.
That's what I do.
I like it.
Definitely.
I know.
But the good
I
thing, because I was almost getting trapped in one of those baby traps a few years ago, and then I was up there, and he had jaundice, and he was just tired, and he was just a little baby, and I thought, I'm gonna drive home in a couple of hours, and it'll be fine. I won't be here when he's screaming for 2-3 hours in a row. I won't be here when mom can't get the milk to run, and yeah, I'm over my baby making days. I'm at the digga, give it back to the parents days.
It's the best
I
kind.
wouldn't mind Mr. Mo would lose his mind. And now that I think about it, I remember being so tired in Walmart with youngest, most feral when we just brought him home that I bought, I think, foil, forks, a pack of scrunchies, a giant chocolate bar, and I had gone there for, I believe, laundry detergent. Mr. Mo comes home and he's like, okay, you have foil, you have string, you have, like 3 candy bars, a bottle of wine, and some forks. Where's whatever I sent you for? And I said, well, why don't you get off your... I said, I kindly told him in a good Christian tone and, as a Psalm 31 wife, I said, my husbandness, my leader, my rock, could you please go to Walmart and get whatever the hell we were supposed to get? Because I'm operating on 4 minutes of sleep and being a human cow. So could you possibly do that?
All right, you may proceed. Okay, so by stipulation, the defense has here Defense Exhibit 5. It is a report from FBI Agent Hipkiss, who has already testified on behalf of the state, and parts of it have been redacted, and so we want to introduce that. And we understand the state has a document that they want to introduce.
Jamie, please don't tell any more about my secrets today.
Oh, that was beautiful because I only put his name there because I wanted him to know I was talking to him, but I was just telling him that work was a ball on Tuesday or whatever. Because he asked me how I was doing. And I laughed so hard. That was a good one. I sent it off and went about my business, and then Baker pulled it up and I was like, oh yeah, I didn't word that. I didn't do that properly.
Yeah, that wasn't nice.
And it came out
and
beautiful.
if you're in the Midwest, please pick up your French toast making supplies. We are supposed to get a dusting of snow, so make sure you get all your cubes of Mountain Dew, your cheesy poofs, and your bread, milk, and eggs to make French toast.
We're not going to object to that.
And I've already got a defense 5. That's
Oh, right. That was never actually introduced, and so we had marked it already, but we're now introducing it.
okay. All right, I see that now. All
I think
right.
that was just he authenticated it when he was on the stand.
Can you make it clear that's a redacted version of?
Yes, this is a redacted version of what he authenticated.
Any objection, Ms. Ross?
No, Your Honor, the state doesn't believe that they'd be evidentiary burden for that, but we trust the fact finder to give it the weight that it is due. So we have no objection to that. We do have rebuttal to Defense Exhibit Redacted 5, and I would introduce the documents at this time. And also the rebuttal will be some testimony from Special Agent Beyer, and he'll be playing portions of Diego Ibarra's interview for the court. So I have those items marked. So if the defense wants to rest, then we can start rebuttal. And I'll introduce those documents at rebuttal and tell the court what numbers they are and the numbers of the documents that pursuant to these individuals' attorneys need to be filed under seal, or the request
That was
of
nothing
these attorneys
from the
to be
defense.
filed under seal.
He's toast.
With the admission of Defense Exhibit 5 is interesting.
5 is admitted. All right,
She doesn't need to put on a rebuttal. She should just let it go.
we'll move into the rebuttal. You all are welcome to stay. I appreciate you being here, but you don't have to. Thank you. That's entirely up to you all. Tell me your name again.
I'm Elizabeth.
Okay. Thank you. I know Mr. Everhart. Thank you. All right, you may proceed.
In rebuttal, Your Honor, the state calls Special Agent Lucas Byer. And in rebuttal, pursuant to our discussions at the bench and.
Oh, ladies, you got a
now
second
the
helping
state's
of
going to move to
ghetto.
the state's exhibits 330, 331, and 332.
The morning's looking up,
And
ladies.
pursuant to the request of the inmates in question,
The rebuttal was non-existent. They tried to get some witnesses in that couldn't testify, either because they possibly could incriminate themselves or it would be rank hearsay. So, yeah.
the state would request that these documents be filed and proceeded after they are reviewed by the fact finder in this case.
Any objection? No, sir. They're admitted. 330, 331, 332.
Yes, sir. And would you like the state to compare the sealing order, or does the court have sealing order? Okay.
We'll see.
It looks like y'all have it covered.
Okay.
All right. May I proceed with the witness?
Yes.
Raise your right hand, please, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you will give today will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
If you could please take a seat, state and spell your first and last name for the record.
My name is Lucas Byer, Lucasbeyer.
Where are you employed?
I'm employed with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation.
And are you the same Lucas Byer that has previously testified in this case?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to talk to you about a few things, and if you could, for the record, do not mention any names of federal inmates, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
If you feel like I asked you a question that requires you to
Oh my
do
God, he
that,
does look like
I'm gonna
Vale
ask that you
Hammer's
pause
little
before you answer the
cartoon.
question
We know
so
what
that
Vale
you
Hammer does
can,
during the
take it
day.
up with the judge at the bench, all right?
Yes, ma'am.
We talked last time you were on the stand. We're not going to repeat any of that, but you told us, well, let me put it a different way. At some point, did you receive information from federal inmates about a statement that Diego had made?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you investigate that?
I did.
And were all the were additional inmates, including Diego's cellmate, interviewed about that statement?
Yes, ma'am.
And were any of the other inmates that you talked to, were any of them able to corroborate that statement?
No, ma'am.
And in the statement that Diego allegedly made to a federal inmate, did Diego confess to killing Laken Riley?
No, ma'am.
Did Diego say he killed Laken Riley?
No, ma'am.
Did you also know that the inmates at that particular federal facility are issued tablets?
Yes, ma'am.
And what's a tablet?
A tablet is a computer similar to an iPad or a Microsoft Surface.
And on those tablets, are the inmates able to access the internet?
Yes, ma'am.
And the particular indictment in this case, in the case of Laken Riley, does it mention the weapon that was used to kill Laken Riley in the actual indictment?
Yes, it does.
And how does it do that?
One of the counts dictates or states that Laken Riley was killed by the use of rocks.
And is that information widely out there in the public?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
I want to ask you about your interview with Diego Ibarra, and now we're going to talk specifics. What date did you interview Diego Ibarra?
Friday, February 23rd, 2024.
What time did your interview start, and what time did it end?
The interview started at approximately 5:13 p.m. It lasted for 91 minutes, and the interview was terminated at approximately 6:43 p.m.
Was your interview recorded?
It was audio and video recorded.
Who was in the interview room with you?
Special Agent Ashley Isaacson, also of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Removal Operations Officer, otherwise known as ERO, Officer Wagner Machado. Officer Machado acted as a translator from Spanish to English and English to Spanish.
And in your interview with Diego Ibarra, and we're going to play just portions of it for the court, and the council's welcome to play whatever parts they'd like to play, but we can clip this 91-minute interview to about 3 clips. So I want to talk to you about, we're going to play these 3 clips, but before I talk to you about them, do you recognize, or before we play them, recognize States 329?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
What is it?
That is a thumb drive that contains clips from my interview with Diego Ibarra.
And State 329 and request permission to publish.
No objection. 329 submitted.
In your interview with Diego Ibarra, did you ask him if he had anything to do with the murder of Laken Riley, basically?
I did.
And what was his response?
He said he had nothing to do with it.
And does he tell you where he was at the time that she was murdered? You asked him that.
Yes, I do.
And what is his response to you?
His response that he was sleeping in bed.
And were you ever, in all the hours that you spent, and let me just ask you this, how many hours have you spent investigating the murder of Laken Riley?
Hundreds.
And in the hundreds of hours that you have spent, what about your colleagues who are working this case with you at the University of Georgia Police Department and at the FBI? So Sergeant Norris, Sergeant Rabu, and Special Agent Hipkiss combined. How many hours have y'all worked?
It combined is thousands of man hours that have gone into this investigation.
And in the thousands of man hours that have gone into this case, have you been able to find any evidence that contradicts Diego Ibarra's statement that he was at home at the time?
I found no evidence to contradict the statement that he was at home at the time.
I'm gonna go ahead and play clip 1 for the record.
Wednesday, I started work at 4 in the afternoon. I'm supposed to have started at 3, but I didn't have a ride. I have a friend that sometimes gives me a ride. I didn't have a ride, so I got to work.
And I need to stop you right there, clip 1. Is that ERO Machado that's speaking?
Yes, that's correct.
And he starts with Wednesday. So what day of the week was February 22nd, 2024?
That was a Thursday.
So when he says Wednesday, he's talking about now the 21st.
Correct. He's talking of the previous day.
And if Laken Riley was killed on Thursday, then the following day when Diego Ibarra and all of the Ibarras are identified, that would be Friday?
Correct.
Thank you.
4 o'clock on Wednesday. Okay, so el miércoles usted entró a las 4 entonces. Sí.
And his work's still usually done at 11?
Y entonces el miércoles usted acabó el trabajo a las 11.
A las 11 de la noche.
Yes, 11 at night.
Then after work, where did you go?
Y después del trabajo, el miércoles, ¿dónde fuiste usted?
En la casa, porque nosotros no conocemos a más nadie aquí, no tenemos más ningún conocido. Nosotros somos nosotros y más ningún conocido así.
So
I've never seen the camera highlight hand movement like that in an interrogation. It's really disconcerting.
Yeah, because what if any purpose does it have?
Well, I guess if you're, having an inmate and someone's, watching you, maybe if he starts doing something real shifty with his hands, I'm not quite sure.
Is that for motion detecting? Really?
It
I
seems to
thought
be.
they put that circle on this guy just to show this was the officer, but now I can see that one in the lower corner down here.
Well, because it also shows up on the female when she starts writing, so it does look like it's motion, but I don't know why you would need that in an interrogation. But
No, but that should be always on. So
yeah.
interesting.
I went straight home. We don't know anyone around here. We're just united together, and we don't know many people around here.
Okay, what time did you get home?
¿A qué hora llegaste a la casa el miércoles?
A las 11, por ser el horario de salud.
No, se salió a las 11. ¿A qué hora llegó a la casa?
A las que me echó media hora caminando, 11:30, casi a las 12.
So, he walked, so he said he got home 11:30, almost 12 o'clock.
Okay, when you got home, what did you do?
Cuando usted llegó a la casa, ¿qué hizo usted?
Llegar, reposar un ratito y esperar que el cuerpo se me enfriara para meterme a bañar.
So he got in and just rested for a little bit, and then took a shower.
Okay, who was home when you got home?
¿Quién estaba en la casa cuando usted llegó?
Estaban ellos, porque ellos saben más temprano, los hermanos míos. Yo salgo más temprano, ¿entiendes? Yo soy el último que salgo ahorita en el horario.
So it was them, at the house, my brothers were there, because I'm the one that gets home the latest. They get home early than I do.
They were all there?
Todos sus hermanos estaban aquí.
Sí, todos estaban allá en la casa allá.
And then what time did you go to sleep?
¿Qué hora que usted fue a dormir?
Were you the big spoon or the little spoon?
That's what I
would be curious about.
Pero más o menos.
No, ni idea, porque tú sabes cuando uno se queda dormido, uno se queda dormido, uno no ve la hora, ¿entiendes?
Okay, so he said I want to be able to tell you the time because when I get home, after I do what I do, I get on the phone, I'm playing on the phone, talking to my daughter, and just fall asleep. I can't tell you the time that I fell asleep, but I just fall asleep.
Okay, would it have been, he can't give you a range, was it a couple of hours after he got home, or had the sun come up?
Entonces, cuando usted fue a dormir, dame más o menos si fue algunos minutos, algunas horas, o ya salió el sol.
No, tampoco así.
Nada.
Como más o menos, más o menos me fue contando como a la una y pico, algo así, porque...
So if I had to guess, I would say probably 1 o'clock, one and some change.
Okay, and then what time did you wake up?
Y
Yesterday?
¿a qué hora es que usted despertó ayer?
Ayer que miércoles.
No, ayer fue jueves.
Sí, ayer desperté que como casi me paré tarde porque me pararon, pero los hermanos míos me pararon que como a las 2 y pico.
A las 2 de la tarde.
Sí.
A las 2. ¿Tu hermano? ¿Cuál hermano?
El men y la gorda.
Te despertaron.
Sí, porque ellos se estaban alistando para irse a trabajar y ellos me pararon, no voy a ir a trabajar.
Okay.
Era tarde.
So yesterday, his sibling woke him up, Manny and the boyfriend woke him up. He said it was around 2 o'clock. They came and woke him up.
So you were asleep from about 1 o'clock in the morning until 2 o'clock in the afternoon?
Entonces usted estaba dormido más o menos de la 1 de la mañana hasta casi las 2 de la tarde el mismo.
Who sleeps 13 hours?
Well, Sarah Boone and this guy.
I sleep 4.
Does that complete the first clip?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
I'm gonna play published clip 2 from 29.
So we're about to show you a video, and we want you to tell us who you think the person in the video is, or if you know who it is.
Vamos ahorita en ese momento.
Because it's difficult for us to see what video was he shown at this time?
Special Agent Isaacson shows Diego Ibarra the video of Jose Ibarra disposing of a jacket in a dumpster.
Entonces, enseñarle un video y queremos saber si usted conoce quién está en ese video.
Okay.
Yes.
I am the nicest person in the world. Only mean person will call me mean.
Do you know where this is?
¿Sabe dónde es eso?
Yeah.
Yes.
Who is this?
¿Quién es eso?
Ese es mi hermano, nosotros estamos los juntos ese día.
That's me and my brother. We were both together that day.
Okay, there's only one person in the video, so who is that?
En el video solamente tiene una persona. ¿Quién es?
Is that you or your brother?
Sí.
¿Es usted o es su hermano?
No, es de él.
It's him.
Him?
No, it's his brother. Sorry, about him. His brother.
Okay, I'm gonna rewind it and let him watch it again.
Usted va a ver otra vez.
And where is this?
¿Dónde es eso?
Eso es la basura donde nosotros vivimos.
This is in the trash can or the back over there by where we live.
No, ese está pegado, no está.
It's everyone.
Yes, I did. Just give it a second.
Dame un segundo.
You'll still see him walk. Is that his hat?
Esta gorra es su gorra.
Sí, es el otro.
Yes, it's my hat.
Okay, does he know what his brother is doing?
¿Sabe qué está haciendo su hermano?
Yo me estaba botando la basura. Creo que yo sé, ahí está botando la basura.
Entonces he's throwing something in the trash.
Okay. And how does he know this is Victor?
¿Cómo que usted sabe que es su hermano? Víctor.
Porque ahí esa ropa yo se la vi a él.
Because that's him in that clothes.
Claro.
Okay. Are these clothes that only Victor wears?
Esa es la ropa que usa Víctor. Nada más.
Esa ropa que empecé todo para su trabajo y todo.
And that's the clothes that he wears to his work and everything.
Okay. And I'm gonna show him one more picture, or yeah, he's gonna show him one more video to see.
One more video for you to look at.
Otro video para ustedes, mira,
I'm gonna let you watch it, then I'll ask some questions.
usted va a ver el video, después va a hacer algunas preguntas.
Well, he's in there on federal charges, so
Based on that,
Ese video de atrás donde agarramos el autobús.
What video now are you showing at this point at 6:19?
I'm showing Diego Ibarra the video of Jose Ibarra at the bus stop near or at Rogers Road near Building S.
So this is a different video than the one you just showed.
It is.
The videos in the back where we take the bus.
That's at the bus stop.
Es en la parada de autobús. Yes.
Can you tell who that person is?
¿Quién es esta persona? Usted.
Ese video es hermano mío.
Es my brother.
Claro.
It's
Of
the
course.
Sí, ya lo han reconocido yo a mi hermano.
He said, of course, that's my brother Victor. I know how to recognize my brother Victor.
How does he know?
¿Cómo que sabe?
Porque esa ropa es la misma, esa chaqueta es lo que tiene en la casa.
That's the jacket. That's the
Sí,
jacket. He
esa
has at home.
sí, claro. Ahí sale yo como mi hermano.
And yeah,
I know, that's my brother.
he has a little bit of a mustache too.
Does he know why he has gloves on?
¿Usted sabe por qué él está con guantes?
Yo también uso guantes, yo me consumo también.
Eso es la pregunta. ¿Sabe por qué él está con guantes?
No sé por qué está con guantes el frío, me imagino yo.
I don't know why he's with gloves, the cold, I imagine that.
Does he sometimes bring clothes home from work, from the Chinese restaurant?
Cuando está allá trabajando en el restaurante de él, él viene para casa con guantes, ¿sí o no?
Sí.
Yes.
Describe the gloves that he usually brings.
Describe las guantes que trae para
Son lo mismo que yo tengo metido en mi mochila, son esos.
It's the same ones that I put in my backpack, the same ones, yeah.
This backpack that you can see Victor carrying, is that his bag or is that yours?
Esta mochila ahí que está con Víctor ahí.
the brother said it's him on the video. That's all that's happened so far.
Ahí es la mochila de Víctor, es suya.
No, esa es la de él, esa no es la mochila mía es la de atrás.
Is that your gray backpack or is that his?
Esta mochila gris es tuya o
Esa es su mochila. Yo la mía es así, pero yo la mía es de espalda.
He said, okay, mine is a backpack. I don't know what he's looking at there, he said that one not, but his is gray as well.
That's a bag that kind of goes across your body.
Sí, no de lado.
La mochila que usted trae
De espalda.
de espalda y de Víctor es que
De lado.
de lado. Victor wears a backpack that goes across the body.
Has he seen Victor with that bag before?
¿Usted ha visto a Víctor con esta mochila antes?
Sí, claro, la tiene en la casa.
Yes, of course, he has it at home.
How often does he carry it?
Tiene su cosa ahí metida.
¿Qué tan pronto él trae esta mochila con él?
No, tiene tiempísimo con su mochila.
Él lleva la mochila cuántas veces por el día, por semana.
Ahí tiene todo su cosa, su cédula, todo su vaina, ¿entiendes? Su colonia, tiene todo ahí metido.
Entonces él trae la mochila todos los días.
Claro.
Okay, so he's with the bag every day. He carries all his personal items and everything.
Is that bag in the apartment right now?
Esta mochila está en los apartamentos.
Está en la casa.
Yes, it's at home.
Where?
¿Dónde?
En el apartamento donde vivimos nosotros.
In the apartment over there.
Where is that?
Does Victor have a bedroom where he keeps that bag in?
Él tiene un cuarto donde él deja
Vivimos
esta
todos,
mochila.
un solo cuarto nada más, vivimos todos.
We all stay in one room. We all stay in one room.
Claro,
One room
claro.
that we stay together.
Dos camas, una de dormir la gorda y el otro menos mío, Giancarlo en un mueble y yo vi todo junto.
¿Cuántas camas entonces?
Dos camas y un mueble.
Okay, so he's saying two beds, and I think he's saying what's it called, futon, el mueble.
Mueble.
Sí, con un sofá que se abre,
Sí.
con cama.
Yeah.
Okay, so he's saying like a futon and two beds.
So if we walk in the front door,
Don't do that.
like guide us to where Victor's belongings would be.
Entonces, entrando por la
MLS,
puerta-
this
la
is
puerta
not the
de la frente,
defendant. This is the defendant's brother.
Guíanos para donde, vámonos para la izquierda o derecha, para cómo entramos, guíanos para llegar a esta mochila.
La mochila en mano, ahí pueden entrar en la puerta y ya todas las cosas que nosotros no tenemos nada escondido porque no somos delincuentes, como le digo, ¿entiendes?
Sí.
Todo está en su sitio, no somos delincuentes para estar escondiendo nada, ¿entiendes?
No, pero la mochila va a estar donde, ahí se
Ahí
de la
está,
puerta.
sí, ahí tiene que estar montada arriba, donde duerme, donde dormir, si no está en la cama, tiene que estar ahí donde está toda mi ropa, donde está toda mi pertenencia. Ahí tiene que...
Entonces, explícame, entrando por la puerta, ¿dónde va a estar esta mochila?
Si no está en la cama, tiene que estar en la pertenencia donde yo tengo mi ropa doblada.
No suya, de Víctor.
Que todos somos hermanos, mano, todos estamos juntos.
Okay. So he said, coming in, if it's not right there on top of the bed, it's gonna be by their stuff where they keep their clothes next to the bed somewhere.
Is that on the left? Or
¿Es
the
en
right?
el lado izquierdo o derecho?
De izquierda.
Left.
And finally, clip 3.
Would you be surprised that much of the evidence that we collected during our investigation points to Victor as the person that hurt the student?
Va a quedar usted sorprendido. La evidencia que nosotros agarramos está indicando que Víctor lastimó a esta persona. Tienen que tener evidencia como perdido. Eso no que le pregunté. Va a estar sorprendido, ¿sí o no? Si usted dice que ¿sí va a estar sorprendido, ¿sí o no? Yo no puedo decir que sí porque no sé, yo no puedo decir que sí. Yo voy a decir ahorita que su hermano Víctor le lastimó a la persona que estamos investigando. Quedaré sorprendido, quedaré sorprendido, quedaré sorprendido. Of course, I'm going to be surprised. Of course, I'm going to be surprised. Claro, porque tiene que tener evidencia, me imagino. You're going to have to have evidence.
Yes, we understand.
Yeah. Tenemos eso.
But again, he doesn't know, you don't know anything about that, right?
Pero, otra vez, usted no sabe nada de eso.
No sé nada de lo que está pasando ni nada, me quedo sorprendido porque me están investigando a mí también, me quedo sorprendido.
I'm surprised that you're investigating me as well. I'm surprised.
So, at no time in the past 12 to 24 hours did Victor tell you any information I heard of somebody.
Entonces, en ninguna vez, ahorita de las 12 a 24 horas, ha dicho Víctor que algo olvidó, que pasó algo.
¿Qué pasó algo?
Sí.
No.
No.
At any point in time, did you participate in trying to cover up somebody being hurt?
En cualquier tiempo, participó usted en alguien estando lastimado.
No participó en nada malo que no me involucre.
Yes, they had a stipulation earlier that both sides agreed on, so they didn't want to call him to court, so they could play this as part of it. And defense exhibit number 5 was filed in relation to this video.
No, entiendo.
Dígame otra vez.
Que no participaba en nada.
I didn't participate in anything.
That completes the clips of that interview that distinguishes the fact finder to consider, and of course, the other side can play what they wish. And at this time, I'll pass it.
Good morning, Agent Fire.
Morning.
You interviewed Stephanie Slayton for this case.
That's correct.
In your interview with Ms. Slayton, she was cooperative.
Yes, she was.
She volunteered to let you download her phone.
She volunteered to allow us to download her phone. We did not do it.
And she expressed fear of speaking to you.
Yes.
She specifically was afraid of retaliation for her statements.
Yes,
Retaliation from Diego.
that's correct.
When you confronted Diego about whether or not he had threatened Ms. Slayton, he denied doing it.
Correct.
When you were speaking
I
to the
need
state, you said that you
a
had
shirt
no
full
evidence
display.
to contradict Diego
Okay,
being
okay.
at home on the morning of February 22nd.
I have no evidence to contradict that he was anywhere other than at home. He did not appear on any video in the apartment complex. He did not appear on the trailer camera.
Multiple people reviewed that video of someone throwing away a jacket in the dumpster.
Yes.
Multiple people identified that person as Diego.
The only person that I'm aware of that identified it as Diego was Stephanie Slayton.
Bethany Paisley also said
Objection, hearsay,
it's rebutting, it's impeaching
call a
him.
witness.
No, it's. Bethany Paisley also said that the person in the dumpster video looked like Diego.
Looked like Diego, but to the best of my knowledge, she was not confident in that identification.
No further questions.
Bethany Paisley couldn't tell you what was in the video, is that right?
Correct.
And the people that could tell you were Rose Belly, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Who came from New York with Jose Ibarra, right?
Correct.
And lived with Jose Ibarra for months.
Correct.
Is the same race as Jose Ibarra.
Correct.
Speaks the same language as Jose Ibarra.
Yes, ma'am.
She was able to identify him from the video.
She was.
Was she in any doubt in her mind that that was Jose Ibarra? Did she ever express doubt to you?
No, ma'am.
Same question about Diego Ibarra. Diego Ibarra is Jose's brother.
Yes, ma'am.
Diego Ibarra identified his brother in that video.
Yes, ma'am.
Did Diego Ibarra express any hesitation, any doubt that he was looking at his own brother?
No, ma'am. He said, of course I know my own brother.
And he did it in both videos, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Stephanie Slayton, how long had she known Diego?
Maybe a little bit over 6 months.
Same question about Jose Ibarra. How long had she known him?
A similar period of time.
And she's the only person who expressed an opinion different than that of Jose Ibarra's brother, correct?
And I'm aware of, yes, ma'am.
And the only person expressed an opinion different than that of.
Oh, it's the buffer bar.
roast belly, Jose Ibarra's roommate.
That I'm aware of, yes, ma'am.
And in your investigation, Special Agent Beyer, is Diego's DNA underneath Laken Riley's fingernails?
No, ma'am.
Is Diego's DNA on the blue jacket that was found in the dumpster?
No, ma'am.
This is the closing argument. She's making this witness to contest the DNA.
Is Diego's thumbprint on Laken Riley's phone?
No, ma'am.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
Anything else, Ms. Barrett?
No, Your Honor.
Can you be excused?
Yes, sir.
No objection.
Thank you, Judge.
Anything else from the state?
No, sir. The state rests for rebuttal.
Anything from the defense?
Can I just look at these last exhibits real quick?
While you're doing that, I'm going to do the exhibits, or is that what you want to look at?
Yeah, I want to look at what they were, but I just want to.
I will say I'm glad that they're giving him a defense of any sort, because this lessens the appeal. And the only thing that I could think would be more heart-wrenching than sitting through a trial is to have to sit through a retrial. And yes, DNA was found, Jose Ibarra's DNA was found under Laken Riley's fingernails. His fingerprint, his jacket was covered in a mixture of both her blood and hair. He's filmed throwing it away. So it's difficult to say that beyond, an act of God, this wasn't Jose Ibarra. Oh, is she going to start her closing now? We are zipping through. Does she have her own face as her avatar? Well, I guess I do too, so never mind.
So do I.
But she's a lawyer person, not a YouTuber. That's an amazing amount of vanity for a not YouTuber.
I have it on my personal Gmail, and I have my logo on my. So.
I need to get a glamour shot. That's what I really need.
We need to start doing all the. I hate those thing in thumbnails that you have to do all the. I'm so. Oh.
I am getting irritated when the thumbnail says so and so destroys someone in a debate, and I'm like, where's the destruction?
Yeah. Yeah, I get a whole lot. All of a sudden, I started getting a lot of old Congress hearings. This and that destroys. In reality, it's just someone saying, "Is that right?" No, I wouldn't say it's that way. But is it right? No, I don't agree. Well, I think it's right. Okay, bye. It's like arguing on Twitter. Ba, ba, ba.
Oh no, we're going to get death by PowerPoint again. When you are God Emperor, could you make PowerPoints illegal for closing arguments unless they have animation or...
I'll make closing arguments illegal. We just had a trial. It's just like when people said, hey, are you going to study for the exam? I said, no, I went to school the full year. Yeah, but you have to... No, I never read before an exam. I went to school. Yeah, she showed us her login to her computer. Yeah, but they shouldn't put on a show for the world to watch. So that's one of the few things I don't like about televised trials is some lawyers know there's a camera in there.
Yeah, and I do wonder if I know I've had a lot of criticisms for the lead state attorney. I do wonder if she would have been as animated in some of her body postures, when she got ruled against, if it was a, if it was a jury trial. I would like to see her in a jury trial and see if her performance is different. And for the love of Cheetos, whoever is the interpreter that keeps opening crinkly wrappers during like the entire trial, could you stop? I silence my stuff if I'm gonna, open a crinkly wrapper.
Yeah.
And it may have been one of the lawyers. I don't know.
No.
Well, I think so. I'm of two opinions. I do think that this is also cathartic for the community. This wasn't just one family that lost someone. The entire college campus, the entire community lost a sense of safety. So part of having this trial, part of bringing all of these kind of gory details out there, is to show this happened and this person is getting justice, and we can do this. We can cross the T's, we can dot the I's, and we can make sure that this person is off the streets. Oh, Lois, she did do a good job. It's just I didn't like her personal attitude sometimes.
Yeah, don't think we say she's a bad lawyer, but she is way too animated. If you saw some of her times at the table, she was, and that's not a good look. You have to be professional, especially when you're the lead, because it's a somber case. I can be an
Yeah.
idiot because I'm a
Like an
YouTuber.
announcement by the state and the defense, the evidence is closed.
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you all ready to go into summation?
State is ready, Your Honor. That's ready, Your Honor.
Okay. Ms. Ross, you have opening and concluding.
Yes, sir.
Did you hear if they had a time limit?
Nope.
Okay. I will say she hasn't dawdled on her openings, or didn't dawdle on her opening, so
30 minutes on her opening.
Court and counsel. Your Honor, Laken Riley herself has given you all the evidence you need alone to find this man guilty of every single count in this indictment. And as I said in my opening, and what the evidence has shown in this case, is that she did fight.
And it is a direct result of that fight that gives you all the physical evidence you need to convict him. And if you only had that physical evidence, you would have enough to convict him. But what you have heard in the last few days in this trial is video evidence laid on top of the physical evidence that corroborates it. Digital evidence laid on top of the physical evidence and the video evidence that all corroborate one another. And the three forms of that evidence in this case, the physical evidence, the video evidence, and the digital evidence, combined twist this very powerful knot that this defendant cannot get out of. There is no way out for him. The evidence in this case has been overwhelming. And the evidence in this case has spoken loud and clear that he is Laken Riley's killer, and that he killed her because she would not let him rape her. And look no further. You have to look no further to his actions 73 minutes before he encountered her on the trail to know what he was up to that day. And so not only does the physical evidence identify him, the video evidence identifies him. His own brother identifies him. His roommate, Rosebelly, identifies him. The people who he was living with condemn him. But his digital evidence of posting selfies of himself wearing what is basically his rapist gear an hour before he leaves his house, that condemns him. He has condemned himself. And what I'm going to do in the time that I have before this court is review the evidence that this court has heard
No,
and ask that you find him guilty
stop
on
now.
every
You don't
single
need to
count
say
of this
more.
indictment. Not because you feel sorry for anyone, but because he earned it, because he deserves it, and because we have proven it beyond a reasonable doubt. Let's start with the physical evidence. The defendant's DNA is under the right fingernails of Laken Riley. And it is only Laken and this defendant in that sample, and no one else. It was first done at True Allele, and because our Hennis and this defendant are blood brothers, he couldn't be excluded under YSTR. And then it was Diego who could be excluded by YSTR because he has a genetic mutation. But True Allele, when looked further in at the sample, eliminated both Diego and Argenis. So the evidence in this case has been, and is, that it is only the defendant and Laken Riley underneath her right nails. And how did that happen? Because she, in her fight...
I think just for the properness of it, he will say, I will be back at this hour. I don't think he'll do a direct verdict. I think he'll say, I'll be back at 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, something, and give you a verdict.
Yeah. And he might even go until tomorrow to really, this is an open and shut case, but there's also the component that you want to feel, even though he's been in the trial the entire time, that he has taken deliberation, that he's thought about this. So while Mo as a judge wouldn't even step up and just say guilty and can we get to the, family room, smackdown with this defendant, in order to assuage fears that this is politically motivated or revenge or any kind of thing like that, it definitely has to be tempered with careful thoughts. So I'm guessing he might even take till tomorrow.
Everything that goes on my stream can strike my channel. Music played in court, words said in court. Sometimes I've been struck without knowing why. So we never ever know when our videos is demonetized.
Marked him, scratched him. And the testimony from Ms. Hinkle yesterday, when asked, well, how do you get a person's DNA underneath your fingernails? One of the first things she says is scratches or bodily fluid. Casual contact is not enough, and wearing an item is not enough. And how do we know that? The black Adidas hat that we all see for our own eyes on Diego's head doesn't have his DNA on it. I mean, contact DNA isn't the magic bullet that everybody likes to pretend it is in front of a jury. But we know Diego was wearing that hat. You can see it for your own eyes. And I'm going to talk a lot more about that hat and why and how Diego was wearing that hat a little later. It is the defendant's thumbprint on Laken's phone. And this was from the Daubert hearing. This is, first of all, the digital image of Special Agent Daniela Stewart. And that is a digital image 597, which is in evidence on one of the thumb drives. And the court heard the testimony that we adopted from the Daubert hearing. And I have here states 28 from the Daubert hearing of October 11th, where Sergeant Stewart of the ACC Police Department, who has been a latent print examiner since 1994, has looked at thousands of prints, compared that image that Special Agent Stewart took on the night of Laken Riley's murder when they finally found her phone after dark away from her body. And he compared it to the known fingerprints of Jose Ibarra, and he did it twice. And he found and explained to the court at the Daubert hearing, which we have adopted as part of this transcript, 15 points of comparison and similarities between the latent print left on Laken Riley's phone and Jose Ibarra's fingerprints. So in order to find this defendant not guilty of killing Laken Riley, you would have to disbelieve DNA. You would have to disbelieve fingerprint evidence. And even if you did that, you would still have this. Quite frankly, she got him. She scratched him. And you heard the testimony from Sergeant Epps and from Corporal Sayan. The left wrist was still oozing. Both of them saw that. And when asked, what's with these injuries by Corporal Sayan, and we played that part of the body cam video for the court to see, Corporal Sayan wasn't coming at him hot. It was super calm and casual. They're out there laughing. They're laughing in those videos, smoking, talking on their phones, talking to one another, all four of those people inside that residence, chillaxing. And Sayan's like, my friend, do me a favor, show me your hands. My friend, how did you get those injuries? And his first response is that of a monstrously guilty individual. What scratches? Y'all don't see these scratches. We don't see these scratches. So in order to find him not guilty, you would have to disbelieve your own eyes. What scratches, he says? All of those scratches. And there were more scratches than that, because when Daniela Stewart, and those photos are in evidence to you, when she photographed him and made him take his shirt off, there are scratches on his back. His back. And you know what that's consistent with? That is consistent with him asphyxiating her, being on top of her, compressing her chest, and smashing her head in with that rock. That's what that's consistent with. How do you get scratches on the back of your neck? How do you get scratches on your back? Laken left those scratches, and the physical evidence says that she left those scratches because that is why his DNA is underneath her right fingernails. She marked him. She marked him for everyone to see. She marked him for you to see. And the digital evidence that she wore that day also corroborates everything, all the physical evidence and the video evidence. We will never know. We will never know what he did to her on that trail and in what order. And we'll never know what he did to make her stop. Because quite frankly, I am certain she could outrun him if she wanted to. But she didn't. And he did something to her where she knew immediately she was in trouble. And how do we know that? From the Garmin and her phone. Simultaneously, if you put those two things together, which is what this graph is that you saw and that's in evidence, at 9:10 a.m., and there's some seconds in between them that really only matter if you're an Olympian swimmer or a track runner. It's so close together in time, it doesn't matter. It is simultaneous. Simultaneously, she enacts or tries to call 911 from her phone using the SOS function of her iPhone. And we know that from her phone. And simultaneously at that same time, she comes to a dead stop. She stops in her tracks. And we know that that is the time she meets him on the trail. And how do we know that? Well, we know that from the FBI, because there is a chart that I'll show you a little later in my closing argument, where at 9:10 a.m., their digital profiles overlap one another. They have met in that woods. His from his timing advance data from his phone. And remember, the moment he enters the forest, his Wi-Fi is no longer active. And so there's no Rubin data from about 8:55 to about 9:40 a.m. And that is evidence of his guilt too. The fact that he's in that forest, that means he's in the forest. And we know he's in the forest because he has no Rubin data. And we know he's in the forest because his timing advance data puts him there. And they meet simultaneously, digitally, on that trail at about 9:10 a.m. And so something happened, and this is her Garmin watch. And we know there was a fight because the way that it looks, look at this, on the trail, she's still on the trail till about 9:14 a.m. And then her Garmin starts moving off the trail. And he takes her off that trail 65 feet, 64 feet and 11 inches to be exact, 65, close enough. And he does that for only one purpose. And that is to isolate her so that he can victimize her. And that is exactly what he did. But the true allele under her nails, as damning as it is, isn't all that you have. And you could put that aside and the fingerprint aside, although there's no reason to. On the jacket that he is seen throwing away about 12 minutes or 14 minutes after her heart stops beating. And it is no coincidence that he is in that forest until her heart stops beating at 9:28 a.m. And it isn't until around 9:40 that he emerges He is with her that entire time. But about 14 minutes afterwards, he is seen on video dumping a jacket that you have here in evidence that you've seen a lot, so I'm not going to show it to you again, that has a mixture, and this is traditional DNA. This is not true allele. This is not probabilistic genotyping. This is traditional DNA, and it is a mixture between only two people, Laken Riley and this defendant. And it's no mistake that it is blood, a mixture of their blood on that jacket. And on that jacket also are 29 hairs that are consistent with Laken Riley that all have been not all of them, but several of them have been forcibly removed from her head. And they were wrapped around the button that you see in some of the photographs when Officer Davis testified, the way that he saw it. And it is a rare day that as a prosecutor, we ever get such great evidence of tampering with evidence. But the defendant himself is on video, and here it is. And now I guess the defense will have you believe he just threw away that jacket right at this moment just because he just didn't want it anymore. That's not reasonable. He threw away that jacket because he knew exactly what was on it. He knew it was his blood, he knew it was her blood, and he knew he had to get rid of it. And he also knew that he had to get rid of his gloves. And so what he does further on in this frame is you can see him take them out of his pocket and throw it in the bushes. And on those gloves is Laken Riley's blood. He threw away the gloves because he knew what he had done. He knew her DNA or her blood would be on that, and he got rid of it. That is what we call consciousness of guilt in our business. He threw away those items because he knew he had killed her, and he threw them away because he didn't want anyone to find them. That's why he did it. And what's so fascinating about this video is the part where he looks at the hat. Let's talk about that. Guess what he didn't throw away? The hat. It's his brother's hat. Diego said it in the interview. That's my hat. He wears his own brother's hat to go kill someone. And he looks at it. Oh, no blood on that. He didn't see any blood on it, although there is some blood on it. Puts it back on his head. Doesn't throw that away. And then lets his own brother walk around with it the next day. And the fact is, if Diego had not been wearing that hat, we may have never caught these people. We may have never caught him. But Diego was wearing that hat. You think for 1 minute, Diego would have to be the dumbest killer on the face of the planet if he killed Laken Riley and was still wearing that hat around. Because what Laken Riley's killer did was he got rid of all the evidence. At least he thought he did. And that hat right there, he couldn't see her blood. And he gives it back to his brother. And luckily for all of us, his brother decides to wear that hat that next day. And we know his brother wasn't wearing a hat on that day because you got to see the video for yourself where Diego goes to work on the day of Laken Riley's killing. He's at work and he's wearing a completely different hat. And each day that we have of the videos of where he's going to work, he's wearing a completely different hat. So this defendant, this killer, gives a hat back to his own brother that he was wearing when he killed Laken Riley. And I have to take a moment. You know, the officers in this case have done a lot of things. They dived into dumpsters. Daniela Stewart told you she was on her hands and knees on that crime scene, looking for rocks that were similar. Couldn't find any rocks around where Laken Riley was murdered. A lot of it, you know, Sergeant Timothy Johnson, whose testimony we adopted from the hearing in October, you know, just hitting the streets, looking for things. Zach Davis, dumpster diving. It was a combination of good police work and, quite frankly, just luck. We were lucky that Diego decided to wear that hat. And do you think for 1 minute if Diego had killed her, he would have put that hat on? No. And looking in the video that you see, and you saw slowed down versions of it, Diego has tattoos on the back of his neck. They are not in that video. Rosebelly herself, who knows both of these two, identified this defendant in that video. And if you're concerned about whether she's right about that, well, the FBI's digital profile of this defendant's device hovers over that dumpster at 9:40 a.m. It's him. And there is no doubt that it's him. Here is the FBI profile, digital profile from the CAS team of the defendant's device now over the dumpster. In the center of this is D1. 9:40 a.m. He's at the dumpster that we just saw him at, dumping bloody clothes. And how do we also know he's back at his apartment at that time? Because Special Agent Hipkiss, who extracted 1B7, said at 9:58 a.m., the device is plugged back in and charging, which means he's back home. But he's not done. And before I go on to the other videos, these are all the selfies of this defendant on his phone 1B7. And I understand, and I suspect maybe the defense will argue, well, Judge, other people used his phone. Yeah, they did in October. And then the other 2 months that they want to talk about are other 2 accounts. Oh yes, Diego has a Google account that has been accessed from 1B7. Both of those accounts that they talked about, one a Facebook, one a Google, I can't remember exactly, but there were 2 of them. Rosebelly had one and Diego had one. One of the accounts was closed in January, and the other one, Rosebelly, was closed in February of February 12th of that year. So on the day in question, on February 22nd of 2024, there is zero evidence, no evidence that anyone other than this defendant was using that phone. And any attempt to argue that someone else was is just pure speculation, because the only activity on the phone prior to it leaving is him taking that selfie at 5:30 in the morning. That's it. There's no one texting, no one WhatsApping, no one calling in the time that he's out hunting and killing, because he's holding the phone and he's a little busy because he's looking for victims. He's looking for females. Nobody else is using that phone. And the FBI said, and the phone tracks his own video. You could put the video of him at the bus stop, which I'll show, and put it with the digital profile of the phone, and they track one another. So the videos and the digital profiles track one another because he's holding the phone at the time. And this is what he does when he gets back. His phone is plugged in at 9:58 a.m., but he's not done destroying evidence. That shirt that he's seen wearing with the black and white pattern in the video, in the dumpster video, a few minutes later when he comes out of his house at 10:21, he's changed. And now he's wearing the clothes that he's actually arrested in. This is him, 10:21 a.m., and he's got a bag in his hand. I really wonder what's in that bag. Never found that bag. And he didn't want anyone to find that bag. And how do we know that? Because he's walking towards a dumpster. And Sergeant Norris said that dumpster in that part of the apartment complex had been picked up about 45 minutes later that day. So they weren't able to get and see what was in that bag. And no one ever found what was in that bag. But you know what was also never found? The striped bag that he's wearing over that sling bag that he's wearing in both the dumpster video and in the bus stop video. That bag was never found, ever. And I suspect it's because it was in that bag that we just see. And here he is coming back 3 minutes later. And there is nothing in his hand. He's gotten rid of the rest of the evidence, because that's what guilty people do. So the digital evidence that I have talked about, in summary, from Special Agent Jay Burney of the CAS team, it is his opinion that he left that house at 6:52 a.m. and that he returned around 9:50 a.m. And that there is no Rubin data on that phone from 8:55 to 9:40, which is consistent with him being in the forest. This is the slide from, and this is what summarized Special Agent Burney's testimony, that at the time at 9:10 a.m., so on this slide here that was before the court, page 29 of his exhibit, at 9:09 a.m. to 9:12 a.m. is where on the trail Laken Riley and this defendant meet digitally and in person. And so that is pretty much the evidence. DNA is there, his thumbprint is there, and he's on video, the dumping evidence associated with the crime shortly thereafter. I want to talk to you about the charges in the case, and this is usually when I would go on much longer with a jury, but I don't think there's a need to do that with this court. These are slides that I use in murder cases where I close all the time in front of juries. The court is aware that in the state of Georgia, we have malice murder. The defendant is charged in count 1 of this indictment with malice murder. Malice can be proven in 2 ways, as you know, but we really don't even need to talk about implied malice in this case. This is express malice. Everything this defendant did to Laken Riley on that trail showed his intent to murder her. And what express malice is simply the intent to kill. And so what evidence is there that when he interacted with her on that trail and he drug her off that trail that he intended to kill her? Well, look no further than the evidence of the medical examiner in this case. He put huge holes in her head with a rock, and he did it more than once. And there could be no other reason to do that other than to silence her forever, so that she could not call Sergeant Maxwell or anyone from the University of Georgia Police Department and report that he tried to rape her. Because guess who did call the police on him? Tejas. And we're going to talk about that county indictment. And he ran away after she confronted him at the door. So he had a motive to kill Laken Riley, but you don't even have to go that far. All you have to do is look at his actions and look at the state's exhibits that we admitted through the medical examiner and look at those 9 holes in the left side of Laken Riley's head. That's intent to kill. And the rock sure is a deadly weapon, especially when used that way. He used a rock like it was a hammer. And that's what he did to her. That's intent to kill. The petechia, also, because these are concurrent causes of death. Asphyxia. He asphyxiated her in some manner. Again, we'll never know everything he did, how he did it. But he asphyxiated her, we know enough. That caused petechia in both of her eyes and even at her lips. That is a tremendous amount of petechia that she has there from a compression or a strangulation injury. He was depriving her body of oxygen long enough to form those wounds on her. He intended to kill her. There is no other reasonable explanation for that conduct. We have also charged 3 counts of felony murder in this indictment. I'm not even going to define it for the court because I know you know what it means, so I'm just going to go straight to the felonies. And they are kidnapping with bodily injury, aggravated assault with intent to rape, and aggravated battery. First, with the kidnapping with bodily injury, that is exactly what happened in this case. And that actual felony precedes the murder in time, because he didn't murder her on the trail. He took her 64 feet and 11 inches off the trail for the purpose of victimizing her. That is asportation, that is recognized under our law. And it is what permitted him to do the things to her that he wanted to do all along. And if he hadn't had asportated her off that trail, he would have been interrupted. So it is a kidnapping with bodily injury. And I have a crime scene photo here from, again, Daniela Stewart, where she shows marker 1, which is Laken Riley's other AirPod. And that's how we also know there was a struggle on the trail. Sophia and Lily find, and we know Laken was listening to music when she was running. They find her AirPod, one of them, in the middle of the trail. And there's a photograph in there. A little towards the side, but still on the trail. AirPod number 2 is found by Daniela Stewart, where marker 1 is off the trail. So there was some kind of struggle between the two of them on that trail, and it's also shown on her Garmin, where she loses her AirPods on the trail. And he takes her off that trail. And we'll never know exactly how he took her off the trail. Did he pick her up and carry her? Did he somewhat drag her off the trail? Did he somewhat push her off the trail? We know that he took her 65 feet because we know that's where her body was found. And also Daniela Stewart saw like a leaf. She called it a displacement of the leaves, and she marked it with those orange flags, but no real dragging marks. So that's a kidnapping with bodily injury. Taking her off that trail, and in the commission of that crime, he kills her. He is guilty of felony murder, with the underlying felony being kidnapping with bodily injury. It's not contested that she has bodily injury. But the aggravated assault with intent to rape, there were a lot of questions about, well, could her shirt be up from dragging her? I suppose the defense might be, well, I killed her, but I didn't intend to rape her. Well, that makes no sense. Because the only thing that makes sense about why these two individuals, these Two individuals who don't know each other, never met each other, had this encounter on this trail at this moment while Laken is out for her morning jog, is because he wanted to sexually.
It means remove her. Aspirated means that he moved her into the woods.
Assault her. What evidence do we have of that? What has been left behind from the struggle that we can discern that? What circumstantial evidence? Well, her clothes are in two different directions. And it is important to talk about her clothes. And we're not talking about her clothes in order to shame her as a female. No, it's evidence on how she wears her clothes. She would wear running tights when she ran because that's what's comfortable.
Closing arguments, and you were here when they said the brother didn't do it. What was that thing about shaming her as a female?
I don't know where she's going with this. So, stick to the facts.
Yeah.
You didn't have to add that line about female. You could have just said she wears tight clothing because that's what's comfortable when running. That's all you had to say. So I was excited with her kind of snark and her passion because I feel like this is the first time in a trial setting that maybe the prosecutor or the DA or the state gets to be the voice of, the community, everyone who's been involved in this. So I can understand passion, but what I don't like is poorly constructed argument. And she didn't have to add that in. She could have just stuck with the facts. This is a fact case, and you can be angry about the facts. You can say he bashed her skull in to the point that there were shards of bone in her brain. Okay, we can get really dramatic. We can be truthful, but we don't have to add these asides. I have no idea.
It was the dumbest thing I ever heard. Like, who
Yeah.
cares? What does that have to do with
I
anything?
mean, unless she's trying to get ahead of the argument that's very, very old and outdated, she wore a tight skirt. But that has never even been broached in this. The defense never said, well, she was wearing really, provocative clothing and my defendant just couldn't handle it. That wasn't even broached, so why bring it up?
Yeah, that's why I felt it was weird that she wanted to go there.
And that's how you run. And she would wear them over her navel because when you're running, you want your clothes to stay put. And she wore a Lululemon jacket and she wore 3 layers of clothes that day. And it's important to talk about that from an evidentiary perspective because these are tight running clothes that are designed not to move. Not to move. And if they want to say dragging may have caused one of the layer of clothes to come up, all right, I'll give you one. But I can't give you 3. And I can't give you the clothes going in 2 different directions. Her
This is all you
shirt
needed to say.
was up.
Yeah.
Her running bra up. Her jacket up, and her breasts were exposed in a way that you saw in Sergeant Maxwell's body cam video, and in a way that Special Agent Beyer testified to the court, and he photographed them. They were twisted all together in a knot almost above, and like almost tying down or pinning down her shoulders. That is not an accident, and that is not from dragging. And if you even want to think that that was from dragging, then how do you explain how her tights are down below her navel? She never wore them that way. Her underwear is pulled up, and you can see it in the body cam video, and you can see it in the photos from Special Agent Beyer, and her underwear has been torn. He did that to her. He did that to her after he drug her off the trail. And he did that to her because he wanted to try to rape her. And we don't have to prove a completed rape. And thankfully, she wasn't raped. But he tried to do it. And he was unable to complete it for some reason that we will never know. Maybe he didn't like the fight. Maybe somebody ran by. Who knows? But he didn't complete it. And we don't have to prove that he completed it. Injury to Laken's pubic bone, State's Exhibit 316, that also corroborates that he attempted to rape her. Why is that injury so low? All these injuries to her stomach, these linear injuries, that means her shirt was up when he's on top of her. Could it have been the bag? Possibly. It's consistent with a metal object. Never found the bag, don't know. But there's no reason for her to be exposed that way unless he was trying to sexually assault her. That is the evidence of aggravated assault with intent to rape. It's the only thing that makes sense about the encounter, but there's all that physical evidence that supports and corroborates that that's exactly what he did out there. Aggravated battery. I could talk forever about aggravated battery and disfiguring her skull. Just look at State's Exhibits 305 and 307. I really don't need to say anything else. Look at those two exhibits. That is the very definition of aggravated battery under Georgia law. He is guilty of aggravated battery and felony murder, with the underlying felony being aggravated battery.
Yeah, she's presenting it well.
Obstruction of a 911 call. The SOS call was made, no doubt about that. We got that from not only Laken's phone, but we also got that from Kevin McCreevy from the 911 call center. She made a call. She made a call. It was answered. You heard the call. Kevin McCreevy testified. The caller hung up on the 911 center. That was his testimony. The 911 center called Laken back twice, and that you could see that in her phone. And neither call was answered. Who hung up the phone? Well, he did. How do we know that? State's Exhibit 28. It is no coincidence that his thumbprint is on her phone where you would go to hang up an iPhone. And also on that call, that was about a minute call, you hear him say, "Yo, Tango." I have. Yeah, you do. You do have. You had her phone, and he hung it up. And when 911 called back twice, no one answered. And her phone is separated from her body. So her body is in, she was murdered by the tree. She was moved and hidden and put leaves over her. And it worked because it took Sergeant Maxwell 20 minutes to find her, and he had her digital profile. And we didn't play the whole thing, but he testified it took him 20 minutes. And because he hid her, because he didn't want anyone to find her. We were lucky there too. But he separated her from her phone. Her phone was so far away from her, it took them hours to find it. You heard Sergeant Norris, I would walk her through shining a flashlight. I almost stepped on it. You saw the video of his body cam. You saw how dark it was out there when they found her phone. He separated her from her phone because he didn't want her to complete that 911 call. And she didn't. He's guilty of that. Tampering with evidence. I've already covered this. It is rare we get this on video, but we got it on video. He's throwing away the bloody jacket. He's throwing away the bloody gloves. That's how it is alleged in the indictment. He's guilty of that. And I've already covered this. There he is. No tattoos, been identified, looking at the hat that he decides to keep. Here he is on social media. If you have any doubt that that's him wearing the hoodie and the black Adidas hat, did you a huge favor there as the fact finder. It's 5:37 a.m. on the day of the murder. He's about to go out, and that's how he's dressed. He is alone in all of these times. Trail cam video, Tejaswi and Sally, the other female runner that encountered him at 8:24 a.m., where he is what? In the woods. And how do we know that? Because when Tejaswi calls the police on him at about 8 o'clock in the morning, he vanishes and disappears into the back. And Sergeant Rabu testified in the direction of the IM fields. And he stays there. What's he doing there? What's he doing there? Well, he isn't running. I doubt he's bird watching. He's sitting there waiting for someone to come by because his first intended target, he wasn't able to get. And I'm going to ask if there are any cameras up. I want to show a portion of something that I don't want the peeping victim to be seen, the Tejaswi.
So I will direct media to not publish this as well as.
All right. So are we good? We're good. Okay.
We're chillax.
I'll let you know when it can come back up.
Hey, I'm sorry. Hey, can I come in or you already?
So I'm just gonna get one thing over the radio. 6427, I believe it's gonna be the north facing at the end of the building.
Hey, sir, you okay?
Oh gosh, I understand with you a little bit. a little bit scary. I'm just gonna be asking a couple questions, get some clarifying information, okay? So you're taking a shower, correct? And you heard something going on?
Yeah, I heard like something was moving and I just heard it was someone from upstairs. I don't usually hear that. And then when I actually came out, I heard it coming from the door.
Are you hearing it coming from this door?
Yes.
Okay.
So I went to see to the people and then I saw actually someone was like crouched down and then trying to like, I think I just open it.
Okay.
And then I thought it was just maintenance. I thought of opening, but then I was like, why would they do that right when the person up?
Yeah.
So, and then I said, excuse me. And as soon as I said that, they tried to duck down, but I could see them ducking.
Mm-hmm.
And then they went away. And then after that, I tried to get the phone. Then when I was standing by the door, then I could see them peeping, trying to peep and take a look.
They're trying to look into that. So at no point do they ever enter your door. Okay, good.
In this frame, you can see, as some people would say, clear as a country mile to the back of Building S from Tasia Sweet's apartment. She absolutely saw him looking in her apartment. And when she said he was ducking, you can see that for yourself in the trail cam video. And the peeping Tom.
What? Clear as a country mile?
Her phraseology is weird.
I mean, I get it, but it was just, you don't need to
but
be
if
fancy.
You have all these
for
shitty bendy roads in the countryside.
If this was for a jury trial, I mean, if you knew that the population of the jury was mostly rural or something like that, it is one of those sayings, but it doesn't match with, she hasn't shown herself to be the folksy country lawyer. So it comes out of left field. But it is something that you could, foresee. It's just a phrase that she uses, but it really has, it is kind of jarring when she says like apparated or disapparate, some sort of apparition, and then she uses a folksy term like this. It's just discordant.
It reminds me of a certain, well, I'm not a one of them big city lawyers. I live up there, know the Florida, we wrestle gators and have the trespassers in our offices. I come down here to big city, very do the lawyering.
What accent is that? That was a mix of so many
That's
things.
Cajun. That sounded Cajun to me.
No, he went like his typical Southern, but then it kind of went, it sounded like it went French for a minute there.
That's why I said Cajun.
It's because, je parle un peu français, near Louisiana, so
I can't stand you.
I will say I don't understand a word of Cajun when it's spoken, but it has to be downright one of the coolest sounding languages, because it mixes hillbilly with French with like a bunch of country sayings. I mean, it might be my only chance at being bilingual.
But you have shoes and church and school and stuff. I love that guy.
Yeah, she could have stopped 10 minutes ago, though. That's the problem. We're adding all these asides, and I get that she had to rewrite her speech. But still, you could have had passion and straight facts and have been done in about 30 minutes.
Well, she hasn't been going that long. She's been going. No, she has been going long. She's been going.
I was about to say, it
40,
feels
40
like it's
minutes.
been a long.
Okay, y'all can
longer than her opening.
Are we good? Okay. Is important as a charge, and because you can see how scared she was and frightened in that video. She was unnerved about what happened to her. She's in the shower, and that's when he decides to try to open her door. Again, he had been outside her apartment for an hour. The testimony from Sergeant Rabu, and you saw this video yesterday from GBI Cyber, he first appears on the trail at 6:52 a.m. according to that trail cam video. Guess what that coincides with? His digital profile from the FBI. His phone is moving at the exact same time that you see him on this video for the first time. And what this does is, it is a crime, and he is guilty of that crime, but it shows his state of mind. You watched the video yesterday. He's there for an hour. You see students kind of mulling around, some of them waiting for the bus, a lot of them on their phones. He is not pressed. He doesn't care. He talks to no one. He interacts with no one. And he keeps circling back and forth from Tejaswi's door to the back of her apartment, Tejaswi's door to the back of her apartment. And he does it 6 times. And he tries to open her door at least twice that we can see. And when she says he is ducking, there's her window. You've seen that image as well. Here is a part of the video at 7:54 a.m. You see him ducking. She is absolutely correct. And what's he wearing? He's wearing the hoodie, a black hat, black gloves, and carrying a cup. His digital profile puts him right over her apartment at these pertinent times. His Rubin data is collecting at this point because he's not in the forest. And so it's him because of that as well. His digital profile puts him there. He's wearing the same clothes. But if you have any residual doubt that that's him in the video, boom, his DNA is on the cup. The white cup that you can see him carrying in that video was found smack in between Tejaswi's apartment and Laken Riley's body, and it is his DNA on that straw. And yes, it's a mixture. It's not Diego's, it's not Artemis's, it's not anyone related to him. It's him and some other male, and there's alcohol in that cup. He's drinking alcohol at 7 o'clock in the morning while he's out prowling and hunting females. It's him.
This is
no
a
doubt that it's
judgment-free
him.
zone.
And I want to talk about the
think
gloves,
I hot female.
because the gloves that he chose to wear that day, you heard from Alexander Coven of the crime lab. Luckily again for us, they were cheap. They're not latex. There's some kind of polyethylene, like plastic gloves that tear easily, is what he said. That was his scientific testimony. And those gloves were torn. And you saw photographs of them where Katrina photographed them at the crime lab. And because those gloves were torn, he was able, and maybe they were not torn when he was holding the cup. Maybe they got torn when he's holding these rocks and murdering Laken Riley when she is fighting him. But at some point they were torn. And we know that because after they're recovered in the bushes, they go to the crime lab and they are photographed and they are examined. And the first person who sees them at the crime lab is Valencia Johnson, and she says they were damaged. The second person who sees them is Katrina, and she photographs them. And you have the photographs and evidence to use to see for yourself that they were damaged. So what in the world is he doing outside a co-ed's apartment, wearing plastic kitchen gloves, a hoodie, covering up his face and skulking around? He is trying to get her. And when he couldn't get her, he ran away into the forest and he stayed there until he encountered Laken Riley about 73 minutes later. And then he did all of the things that we've already covered in the indictment. And I want to talk to you a little bit about circumstantial evidence, but not in a way that I would talk to a jury about it. There is no legal difference between circumstantial evidence and direct evidence. It's not bad. It's just different. And in this case, it is powerful. And it is layered upon layer upon layer. And there is no way out for him. He is guilty of everything in the indictment. I want to talk to you about the defense case. And this is actually something that a scientist said yesterday. It's amazing how trials are, how people say things you never expect it. And they just have a life of their own. Trials. Ashley Hinkle yesterday, I think it was on Cross. The absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. I couldn't say it better myself. I suppose their defense is Diego did it, because that's all we've been talking about is Diego. And yeah, Diego was a suspect because he's wearing the hat that they saw. But eventually, you know what the officers didn't do in this case? They did not turn a blind eye. They got Diego's phone, they got Diego's DNA, they interviewed Diego, and they followed it to its natural end. They looked through hundreds of hours of video. You saw the chart that Detective Norris put in on Friday of all the videos around the IM fields. And there were multiple cameras. He and Sergeant Rabu and Special Agent Lucas Beyer, they watched hundreds and hundreds of hours of videos. Guess who's not anywhere near the IM fields at the time and on this day? Diego. He is nowhere to be found. And the only way that Diego could have done this crime, and the only way that it could be even like a reasonable hypothesis that he could have done this crime, is if he had two things. Number one, magic pixie dust. He would need the magic pixie dust to put his brother's thumbprint on her phone. He would need the magic pixie dust to put his brother's DNA underneath Laken Riley's fingernails. And he would also, in addition to that, because of the video evidence, he would need one other thing. And that would be Harry Potter's invisible cloak. He would have to put that on and go to the IM fields and do these things.
Is that what you went with apparated?
And I want to talk about Stephanie, because what your decision is today is it's Stephanie versus science. Stephanie who wants to invoke the fifth when asked about whether she had a sexual relationship with Diego, which goes to her motive for being here. And the conversation, which is so interesting, she said she had with Diego on the night of the 22nd, after the police were in her apartment. And we know it had to be the night of the 22nd because it was after Laken Riley's body was found, which was noon on the 22nd. But before 8 a.m. in the morning, when Sergeant Johnson sees Diego wearing that hat that his brother left in the apartment after killing her. And she says between that time, she had a conversation with him at some point. Well, guess where Diego was that day on the 22nd? You saw it for yourself. He was at work. And he was at work until about 11 p.m. And it was Stephanie's birthday, and she was out drinking. And she drinks so much, Judge, that she even said, and the GBI, Annie Mormon, confirmed, she was drunk when she was talking to the GBI the next day still. And maybe she did have some semi kind of conversation with
There's
him.
a
Even then, if you
lot
take her
of
at her word, it's not a confession.
judgmentalness in this right
There is
now.
no evidence that he did anything except be a brother to him. And it's pretty low down that you're going to take the killing hat and then let your brother wear it around in the apartment complex the next day. But that's just what a killer would do. So to believe her, you would have to disbelieve all of that. And then today we heard some unreliable inmate hearsay. Not reliable. And cannot weigh anything against the mountain of forensic evidence, video evidence, and digital evidence that you've heard in this case. And yes, here is Diego wearing that hat. You think he'd have worn that if he had known what was on it? He didn't know. Glad he wore it. He didn't know. And so that completes my portion of this closing argument, and I will cede to defense and see Your Honor at rebuttal. Thank you.
Ms. Beck.
Your Honor, Ms. Ross.
Oh, please be better than Chandler
Evidence that
Halderson.
is subject to
Chandler
more than one
Halderson
investigation is
did
not
not
proven beyond
unalive his
reasonable doubt.
parents. He likes video games, but who doesn't? And maybe he
Yeah.
dismembered him. But I mean, do we
He at
have
least didn't
video?
eat. Well, he tasted the long pork, but he didn't like the taste of the long pork.
Baker, that case will always bother me for one distinct reason. You have a GD green egg outside. If you wanted to, say, cook something low and slow or long, and no one would think anything about that, why would you not put everything in the green egg and just tell people you're barbecuing because it is 4th of July versus putting it in the GD fireplace in the 4th of July? I mean, I don't know why that's
Because
the thing
he's
that
a
bothers
straight
me the
ace
most.
who put a fan outside of the what's
The
it called?
fireplace.
Yeah, the fireplace in the living room that burned so bright that the neighbor up the road thought, that's weird.
Yeah, I mean, or just have gotten a job and actually gone to college, whatever.
But one thing that will always piss me off in that case is Kat did nothing. We agree she did absolutely nothing. And then you see her.
Yeah, she stayed
that-
in a pillow fort next to like El Crematorio. You're telling me Chandler, a man who's never even made Easy Mac by himself because mommy had to do it, now he's smoking like long or pork ribs? I mean, okay.
It's yeah, I and especially because that way, oh, she did nothing. We agree. She absolutely did nothing. And then you see her sitting there in talking about smexing and I like to eat chocolate. I am allergic to chocolate.
Yeah, and I still need therapy for the fact that I had to imagine her and Chandler in the shower FaceTiming. I'm like, "Bleh. That's 90 pounds of nope I don't want to see."
That was so weird. Who FaceTimes in the shower?
Well, I mean, you would assume if you look on the scars on my legs that I'm always FaceTiming when I'm attempting to shave my legs. But no, I managed to do that all by my own self.
It's yeah, it's so. We should do a rewatch. How long is
Oh my
that case?
gosh.
Can I rewatch it on
It's
Thanksgiving?
It's 8 weeks long, but I think if you did the opening and the closing, because the state had to hilariously, I mean, they didn't put Jigsaw, the little, puppet guy in front, but they put Bart and Krista, and then they broke them up like puzzle pieces. I'm like, possibly not the PowerPoint graphic to use when they've been dismembered and scattered across the county, but You know, I mean, at least you didn't start with, do you want to play a game?
Does Ricada send no, he sends well, he streams from his hot tub. I want a hot tub. I want to be
Oh,
YouTube rich
yeah.
so I can get a hot tubs.
I'm banking on bath water for
As Mr. Kirby said, his
retirement.
opening the evidence in this case is graphic, and disturbing, and it is deeply sad. And I don't envy your position, Your Honor. The rest of the people in this courtroom get to be human. We can feel shock and outrage. But Your Honor is the court. You are the embodiment of law. And as the court and the fact finder, the law requires that you not allow your verdict to be swayed by sympathy for anyone. It must be based on the evidence. Mr. Ibarra, acting on our advice, elected to have a bench trial, trusting that Your Honor could, and believing that Your Honor would, set aside the emotions in this case and simply consider the evidence. So I'm going to catalog for Your Honor why I think the facts and the evidence in this case should leave you with some reasonable doubt. Before I do, I want to touch on 2 legal principles. Your Honor is already familiar with them, but I do want to make my legal arguments clear for the record. The first legal principle is embodied in OCGA 2446. And that law requires that when the state's case is built on circumstantial evidence, they have a higher burden. They have to go one step beyond proving their case beyond reasonable doubt. They also have to exclude, beyond a reasonable doubt, any other theory consistent with Mr. Ibarra's evidence.
No, you don't. Check out Delphi.
Because the evidence is subject to more than one interpretation, it is not proof beyond reasonable doubt. And while the evidence in this case is voluminous, it is circumstantial. The second principle is the difference between a party to a crime and accessory after the fact. This principle is codified in OCGA 16-1050, and I would also direct Your Honor's attention to Purvis versus the state. Purvis is spelled P-U-R-V-I-S. That is 208 Georgia Ave 653. And that case basically explores the difference between proving that someone is involved in a crime while it is committed versus proving that someone is involved in the cover-up of a crime. The important difference, Your Honor, is that if the evidence shows that Mr. Ibarra was involved in the cover-up of the crime, but does not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was involved in the murder itself, Your Honor would be authorized to find him guilty on the tampering with the evidence charge, but not with the murder. So now I want to talk about the evidence that was presented. First, I'm going to discuss the reasonable doubt in the state's case that Mr. Ibarra was involved at all. Then I'm going to discuss 2 alternative theories that are consistent with the evidence that would show Mr. Ibarra is not guilty of the malice murder or the felony murders. And finally, I want to discuss a few specific elements of a few crimes and the evidence we've heard on those. The state bases its case in chief on some categories of evidence. There's DNA, there's a fingerprint. They talked about the digital evidence and the surveillance footage. There is reasonable doubt in each of those pieces of evidence. I'll start with the DNA. There is doubt based on what was tested and doubt based on what was not tested. When Ashley Hinkle was on the stand testifying, and Mr. Kirby was cross-examining her, she talked about the limits of her science. She talked about the fact that some of the factors involved in testing for DNA are controlled by humans, and some are run through a program. She decides how many people's DNA is on an object, and then asks True Allele software to compute from that number of people the likelihood of whose DNA that is. Her decision impacts how the test is run. She told you that there is an element of randomness in True Allele, and that if they run the same test multiple times, different probabilities will come out. And that's what happened in this case. Your Honor should be skeptical of the DNA evidence also because of something that Ms. Ross talked about. A hat that we know for certain was on Diego, a hat that we know for certain was his hat that he claimed. Nothing on that hat tested positive for his DNA, which goes to show that even if someone is wearing clothes, touching clothes, owning clothes, DNA is not always going to show up when the lab tests it. People in court wore gloves when they handled this evidence because they were afraid of cross-contamination. They were afraid that their touch would impact the reliability of future DNA tests. When you look at the apartment from which these clothes were taken, that is a lab tech's nightmare. There are clothes everywhere piled together. It's 5 people living in one room. And the state's theory is that they shared clothes. Of course their DNA is going to be on each other's clothes. It's more than possible that one brother's DNA would get on another brother's clothes. In fact, it's probable. And who would have the most cross-contamination? Diego and Jose, because they shared a bed and they shared clothes. When it comes to True Allele, I do believe our argument is hampered by not having an expert, but there are clearly flaws with that testing system. One of the tests that they ran for the evidence in this case came back to a retired GBA agent who was not involved with the testing of the case, was not in any way could have had their DNA on that object. There's also doubt based on what was not tested for DNA. There was a bloody thumbprint on Laken Riley's phone that they believe was placed there by the killer. And they chose, rather than swapping that for DNA, they chose the less reliable scientific method of fingerprint evidence. There were no swabs tested of the phone, even though Saunders testified that they did take swabs. There were no swabs tested from Laken's neck and torso. But perhaps the most important is that they swabbed Jose Ibarra's hands and his fingernails. And their theory is that his gloves ripped enough for him to leave a fingerprint on a phone. That rip would have allowed him also to have contact with Laken Riley's body. And then if they had tested the swabs on his fingerprints, we could have seen if Laken Riley's DNA showed up on his hands. But they did not. They don't get to cite a name of a guy we don't know, James Sebastian, and call it a day. They should have provided some reason why they didn't test these swabs, and they gave Your Honor none. They also didn't test any of the gloves found in Diego's bag. They had a visual examination, but we know from the state's own evidence that's not enough. Katrina Ostapovich testified that she has to use a special light to see blood on objects. She called that light an ALS and compared it to a black light, because blood is not always visible to the naked human eye. So Saunders' visual examination of the gloves in Diego's bags should not persuade Your Honor beyond reasonable doubt that they did not have blood on them. The fingerprint evidence in this case is also questionable. At the Daubert hearing, Tim Stewart testified about the APHIS database, and that is a federal database that stores any fingerprints deemed valid enough for comparison taken by federal agents. There are hundreds of thousands of people in that database. And Tim Stewart, before he did his own comparison, ran the latent fingerprint from the phone through that database. And there was no match to Jose Ibarra. He wasn't even in the 120 possible candidates that APHIS populated for Tim Stewart. I want to also speak briefly about confirmation bias. When we were speaking to the medical examiner, she talked about how when she looks at the case, there's information already populated in the system that she doesn't generate. The case number and the involved parties. And the involved parties in this case are telegraphed to the scientists at GBI as to how the state wants the evidence to come out. The information said subject Jose Ibarra and elimination Diego and Argenez Ibarra. And unfortunately, when you're testing for DNA and you know ahead of time the result you're supposed to get, that colors the process and weakens the scientific reliability of those DNA tests. Now, as the phone location data, their theory is that Jose had the phone. Agent Hipkiss testified that Jose is the user of the phone. Their evidence relies on the fact that Jose had exclusive access to that phone, but that is dispositively not true. Norris testified that other individuals were communicating with other members of someone using that phone in October. The stipulation of the parties showed that there were other accounts on that phone. There were 2 Gmails belonging to Diego, and there was some evidence that that email account was active in January of 2024, which is a month prior to this. Rose Bailey had a Facebook Messenger account on there. Jose's mother-in-law had a Gmail account on there. There are multiple Instagram accounts belonging to Diego on there. That's all stipulated. And even if you consider that Jose had the phone, the testimony of Jay Burney shows that there is some shakiness as to exactly where that phone was at the time of the murder. The broad band of where that phone could have been due to the delayed timing evidence of the phone is quite wide. It covers parts of the Oconee forest and parts that are outside the forest. He concluded that the user of the phone must have been in the forest because of the lack of Wi-Fi Rubin data, but he also conceded that that Wi-Fi Rubin data could have been lacking if someone turned off their Wi-Fi. That uncertainty as to what caused the Wi-Fi to not respond is reasonable doubt. In the dumpster video, Your Honor should have some doubt based on the angle and the quality of the video. Rose Bailey did identify Jose, but she testified that the reason she identified him was because of the hat and the shoes. The hat that we know Diego owns, and black slides that we know Diego owns too, because the agents found a second pair of black slides in the apartment when they searched him. So the hat and the shoes that Rose Bailey identified for Jose could just have easily been Diego's. In the 911 call, no one identified the voice. I don't know why the state didn't ask Rose Bailey, but she was here. Maybe she could testify to who was speaking, but no one did. And the phrase that the state would...
Why didn't you ask her so you could get her to disprove it?
Yeah, you weren't barred from asking questions. And, you know, with her being, I don't mean to say this insensitively, but kind of grayish, it is easier to give her grace as far as this is her job, this is part of the system, she has to ask these questions and show these doubts. when you compare her to Owens, she is leagues less offensive than he was. And, you know, I couldn't imagine having to look at all this evidence and still have to defend this client. It is.
No, she has no obligation to ask questions, but she wants the questions asked because that could prove her case, is what she's implying. So
Yeah. And I mean, she has a terrible fact pattern. I mean, the client all but called the police while he was standing over the body. I mean, well, because no one listens to Gen X. The boomers won't give up the, reins, and by the time they do, it'll be millennials' turns, and I'm sorry.
I can already hear the clippity-clop of the 4 horses of apocalypse.
I'd like you to believe is being spoken, Yo Tango, was heard by somebody who does not speak Spanish.
Good, honey.
We don't know what is being said on that call. We don't know who says it. There is an alternative theory in this case that makes sense of some of the discrepancies in the state's case. Jose was short. He was chubby. He was, according to the state, wearing slides the morning of February 22nd. I agree with the state that Laken Riley was physically fit. She was fast. She could have outrun him. But there's another suspect in this case who was taller, who was more physically fit, who was wearing sneakers on the day of the murder, and that is Diego Ibarra. We know from the dumpster video that the person throwing away the jacket is tall, because Officer Zach Davis testified the slot into which the jacket was thrown was about 6 feet high. The person in the video didn't have any trouble. It was parallel to the head or just above it reaching that slot. That suggests someone that's taller than Jose Ibarra. We also know from Joseph Clementi that there was a second person out wearing dark clothing, not a runner, on the day of the murder. He testified that between 9:46 and 9:48, he saw somebody
That's
who was
what we're
skinny,
hanging the
wearing
case
dark.
on.
Yeah, that's and that he could run faster.
Oh my
Clothing,
goodness.
wandering around intramural fields, and was about 6'9" or taller. That description matches Diego
6'9"?
and we know it can't.
He's a Viking?
We're not six. We are 6'6", 6'2" on average. That's no. You can't come and tell. And that guy said I couldn't recognize him again if I saw him. So
and he said he had khaki pants on. It is possible. Two things can be true at the same time. He saw someone completely unrelated to the case.
yeah,
that was
someone
in dark
out
clothes.
having a stogie before going
Yeah.
to work.
Can't be the same person in the dumpster video because it happens at the same time. The dumpster video is at 9:44. Clementi is pretty certain about his timeline because he's tracking his position using a running app on his phone. Other evidence suggests Diego is the one who killed Laken Riley is, of course, that the fact he was wearing the hat of Laken Riley's blood on February 23rd. According to the state, you can see blood on black clothes, so Diego, when he's choosing hats that morning, should have been able to see that the hat was bloody. But more importantly, Officer Epps testified that he observed dirt on the brim of the hat. Tim Johnson testified that he observed dirt on the brim of the hat. There is no way Diego put on that hat without noticing something was strange about it. And the reason he put it on, without questioning why it's got dirt and blood all over it,
He was drunk and half
is
awake.
because he already knew that it was there. The state would like to say that
It was a speck around about this big. I have caps I've worn way too much where you can see all this sweat discoloration. We men
My
are gross.
husband has a pair of underpants that should be consigned to the depths of hell, but they're broken in. So, who cares that the waistband is completely almost detached? They're broken in. I call BS.
Yeah, and as long as the holes in the bottom is not enough that the marbles fall out, they're fine. Women go spend way too much money on clothes.
Diego would have to be the dumbest killer in the world to put it on. But unfortunately for the state, that's exactly what the person in the dumpster video does. After he examines the hat, he puts it back on. So if their theory is that that's Jose or that's Diego, either way, the killer put the hat back on his head after having been committed a murder. So that argument does not hold water.
Well, your client might be a moron.
We know that Diego had 2 cloth gloves in his bags. Both of them are mismatched, meaning that, assuming that they each had a pair, there was a pair of gloves Diego owned that was never found. But while we're talking about gloves, I want to talk about the black gloves that were found in the apartment. We know that they were disposable kitchen gloves, and unfortunately we don't know where they came from because the officers didn't track the investigation that far back. However, Rose Bailey said that they did not come from.
And can we? I don't know if this is racism. Iris, can I get a Mexican card? How many Hispanics have you seen that's 6'9"?
Well,
I'm just saying, except Giant Gonzalez from the WWE back in the early 90s, late, I think 92, SummerSlam 92 and 94.
okay, Baker, I figured this case out. Diego did it. Remember when Dora had a spin-off and it was her cousin Diego and he also had a magic backpack? He had a map, he had the backpack, and they're like, what are we gonna do today? Follow the map to assault, do. And he used the magical backpack to transmogrify himself over to the field and no one found him.
While his brother was
Dora's
running
fault.
around looking at a girl's house on video.
You know, it's their family time. We can't judge it. I mean, some people do game night, some people do stalking. Weird.
Yeah, it's yeah, it's just I think she said it must have been 5'9". She just misread it because 6'9", even Dutch people ain't that tall.
Yeah, I mean, and that would be noticeable. The guy running would be like, "Holy crap, was that guy tall?" Like I couldn't tell you his pants, but he was a giant.
Shaq was 7 foot. You would see him come, and you would notice someone that tall. 6'9", you would.
It would be harder to blend in if you're a predator too. I mean, you
Yeah.
would have to go out of your way to slunch over. I think I want to say there was a pretty prolific essayer and Redrummer in Britain, and they always counted him as shorter, but he was actually like 6'4" because he hunched deliberately while doing his crimes to look shorter.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because who do I know who's 6'9"? I think Shaq is around that height. I think Brian Shaw is around that height. Even if you're tall and skinny, and none of these brothers are skinny, you would stand out like
Well, and let's go back to
like a
the
peen in a female camp.
let's go back to this ridiculousness. You're a dude fighting against a much smaller woman. Regardless of if you have slides or you're fluffy, Jose could still take me. Jose would definitely be a threat to me, even if I'm the same height as him and he's fluffier than I am. If he gets me, it's not going to, be good unless I can get away from him. So whether he had slides on or he was fluffy, once he gets her and he does a blitz attack like it looks like he did,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if he has slides on.
No.
It's so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's yeah. Yeah, Shaq is just but people that is that tall. You met Nick. When you see Nick, you
Yeah.
see Nick. Nick is
My
so
kids were
massive.
like, is he a wizard?
I think he's like 6'5" or something, and he's just
Yeah.
he's probably as wide as I am, and he's just
He's a tall guy.
yeah. It's no, Larry Bird wasn't 7 feet. Oh, Larry Bird was a small one, but
There you go, talking about
she
sports
must have
ball.
meant 5'9". She must have meant 5'9".
Yeah. But here's the other thing, ma'am. While I give the state prosecutor a little bit of leeway to be kind of the righteous voice of some of the anger of the community and the family, ma'am, when you talk about, well, I guess they couldn't find blood, they found hairs, they found blood. Maybe don't, be snarky when you are defending this particular person, no matter how much of, a Regina George mean girl the state's prosecutor has been, because it's gonna look pretty bad.
Yeah. Was he 6'9"? Was he that tall? He just looked small.
Tajay. The
Well, he
sushi
had a
place
bad
It was the
back
short
when I started
shorts.
watching
They
him.
did not
It
come
was
from
just
the
the
place
short
Jose
shorts. He
Ibarra
looked
had access
taller.
to. What we cannot rule out is the Bolton dining commons, the UGA dining facility where Diego worked. Why is that important? Because bringing the gloves home shows a step of premeditation. Who had access to do that? Diego. Why would he do that? Because he was planning to use the black gloves at some point.
Shaq is 7'1". So yeah.
And speaking of gloves, why are there 3 of them found in the bushes? Jose has 2 hands, like everybody else, but there are 3 gloves, and they test all 3 and found presumptive blood on all 3 of them. What that suggests is that there are multiple pairs of hands wearing those gloves. Now, they did enter video evidence of Diego clocking in at work, but that video is not an alibi for Diego because his commute to work was only 10 minutes, and his clock-in time on February 22nd is 3:57, which is 6 hours after the murder. If anything, Diego's work schedule makes him more suspicious because the bus stop that he regularly takes to work is the one featured in the surveillance video near Saraswati's apartment. It is the same bus stop that the officer said they reviewed and never saw Diego. And we know that they should have seen Diego because he took that bus stop to get to work that day, which means the detectives never saw him because they missed him at least once, possibly more than once. We know that Diego's phone had no service, no location capabilities, and the agents testified that Jose's phone was a go-kart to Jose's race car. If Diego needed to use a phone with service, the phone that's already logged into his Facebook, Instagram, and Gmail, he would have taken Jose's. The state argued that Diego didn't act suspicious. Neither did Jose. Both of them complied with police commands. Both of them answered questions and were talking, laughing outside the apartment. Officer Cyan testified that the vibe amongst all the roommates.
No, Diego is a resident of a state facility right now.
Was relaxed. They were smoking cigarettes. You can't assume anything good from Diego's behavior on February 23rd that you can't also attribute to Jose. But it goes beyond the possibility that Diego was involved. Diego himself, multiple times, confirmed it. First, by threatening Stephanie Slayton. Now, Ms. Slayton has no incentive to lie, and the state did a lot of work trying to make her look uncredible. And I like the state is not about shaming females until they're testifying in a way that complicates their evidence. Because they try to use her sexual relation with Diego to implicate her involvement. They've tried to shame her for celebrating her birthday. But the truth of the matter is she was scared and she came forward to the police anyway. She talked to them multiple times. She offered to let them download her phone, even though she was fearful of retaliation. Those are not the actions of someone who's making something up. In the context of that conversation that Slayton was talking about, she tells Diego, I know you're in that area a lot. You must have seen something. You should tell the police. And that's when he said, if you tell them that, like I was in the area and I might know something, I will tell them that you did it and then I will kill you too. Why is the two important? Because it's implying that he has already killed before. But Slayton is not the only one who has heard statements from Diego that implicate his involvement. Your Honor is aware that there are inmates who have heard Diego say that he was wearing the blue jacket on the day of the murder, that Jose threw it away in the dumpster, presumably for him. He told them that Jose didn't do it, and the police weren't looking carefully enough at the evidence. He put himself on the scene and told those inmates that he saw Laken Riley's body. Your Honor is obviously going to be thinking, well, how did Diego then not show up in the DNA evidence? He might have. We know that there were multiple male profiles on the straw. They said it couldn't be a blood relative because of a YSTR straw, but we know that Diego was not a YSTR comparison from the fingernails. So that could have been Diego on there. And as Ms. Hinkle said, the absence of Diego's evidence is not evidence of Diego's absence from this case. Some of the minor profiles on the gloves and the hat were not identified. And the true allele ratios that the state relies on said that the DNA was more likely to be Diego's than Argenis'.
No, that's not what it said. It was excluded. Oh, she's really misstating the DNA. Yeah.
Look at the state prosecutor. She's like trying not to let the snark rise, but this woman is lying her behind off. And let's bring up this female shaming thing. The state prosecutor basically said she's an incredible witness. That has nothing to do with her being female. It has everything to do with the fact that she had a personal relationship with one of the people. She admitted to being intoxicated to the point where she was, celebrating by herself. So these are things that you do have to take into account. If you are the court or a jury, you have to, there are instructions in there. You have to, judge each witness on what they may gain or lose from the case. If they have the, potential to skew it because of personal animus or love. So yes, this is not attacking her as a woman, it's attacking her as a witness. And if you can't figure that out, stop using lady bits as an excuse. For the love of Cheetos and everything that's holy. She was a terrible witness. You guys called her,
And she was
just deal
drunk
with
on
it.
the stand. She sounded drunk. And Scooter, Jose's wife, is in New York, so she probably didn't know anything.
Another theory of the case that is not excluded by the state's evidence is that Jose was an accomplice after the fact of the murder. Maybe it was him throwing away the jacket, as Diego said. Maybe he was covering it for his brother. Maybe one of the two men in the area went to the dumpster, and one went to the retainment pond at 9:46, which is where Joseph Clemente saw somebody standing. Maybe one of them dumped clothes in a dumpster behind the apartments, and maybe one dumped clothes in the woods, where Officer Krischer found clothes exactly in that area that were not tested because they didn't fit the simplistic narrative of the state. Maybe there were two men involved in covering up Laken Riley's body, which is why there were 3 gloves recovered in the bushes. 2 people wearing 2 gloves. We just don't know what happened to the 4th. To explain why there are 2 rocks in this case. We know that Jose was looking for Diego on the morning of February 22nd, because Agent Hipkiss testified that at 2:30 in the morning, there's a missed call from Jose to Diego. So there is some evidence that he was looking for Diego. The Spanish phrase of the 911 call could be Yo Tango, but it could also be the name Diego. That could be Jose saying his brother's name.
So now his brother was there seeing Diego unalive her and then taking the phone.
And yet he managed to, while he was there doing this violent attack, not leave any DNA, but his brother sure did. So he's just an awful crimer. It doesn't make sense.
It's okay, you have to fight, but you don't have to be ridiculous.
Under that theory, of course, Jose would be guilty of tampering, but that theory does not prove that he was present or involved in the murder of Laken Riley. I want to speak last about 2 specific charges: aggravated assault with intent to rape and the peeping Tom charge. Their basis for concluding that the aggravated assault with intent to rape was the state of the clothes and the markings on her body. But Maxwell, the officer who found Laken Riley, testified that the area where he found Laken had vines and thorns. He testified about those catching on his uniform as he walked around looking for her. And they also, so it could have been that she was cut up by the vegetation in the area. We know that she unfortunately was dragged at some point because the scene where the blood is separate from where her body was found. So the scratches could have come from her being dragged to another area. And we also know it's unlikely to have been the scratches of her assailant from the fingernails, if that assailant was Jose, because when Daniela Stewart went to take his fingernail clippings the day after the murder, they were too short to take any clippings without having cut into the quick and being very painful. So it's unlikely to have been Jose's fingernails that caused those scratches. We also know that she had bloody marks on her ankles that didn't correspond to the wound, which suggests that somebody with bloody hands grabbed her ankles and used that to move her. And that could explain how her clothes are pulled up in that dragging position. We know that there was a struggle. We know that Miss Riley fought. Somehow her clothes could have ended up twisted in that struggle. And lastly, the intent to rape is a very specific intent. It's not just an intent to sexually assault someone. It's not just an intent to look at someone. It's not just an intent to expose their breasts. It has to be the intent to commit the legal definition of rape. And in this case, there's no evidence of trauma, according to Dr. DeMarco, of anything like that having happened or even attempted to happen. As far as the peeping Tom, the only part of the evidence I wanted to highlight for Your Honor at this point is that when Ms. Saraswati identified someone looking into her apartment, she said she never saw any part of his face, only the rim of his hat. So I think there's reasonable doubt that someone was actually able to look in. It may have just been the hat that was visible to Ms. Saraswati. Just one moment, Your Honor.
So his fetish is to put his cap lid on
evidence that's subject to more than one interpretation is not proof beyond reasonable doubt. I would remind Your Honor that even if you think the alternative theories of the evidence are less likely, but they present any reasonable doubt, you would still be required to find Mr. Ibarra not guilty. We ask that Your Honor apply the exacting standard of the law to these facts and find Jose Ibarra not guilty. Thank you.
Ms. Ross?
So what we just heard really is magic pixie dust.
Oh, hell, she's not even waiting for the lectern.
It is not reasonable. It is not supported by any evidence. And it is desperate. And it is a combination of a break with reality and mischaracterization of the evidence. And I can just give you a few examples. They did not report, the GBI did not report that someone else's DNA who used to work at the crime lab was in any of these items of evidence. That was not the testimony at all. The testimony is that they have a validation for true allele. And if any amount, it was a 4% contributor, falls below their threshold, those are not reliable results, which is how they compensate for the known error rate of true allele. The GBI will not report results below the known error rate of true allele. Every single result in this case that is before your honor is reliable, reproducible, and validated. That's why they reported it. If it were not those things, they would not have reported it. And then let me give you another example of the desperation. Well, the straw could be Diego's. No, it can't. It wasn't a YSTR result with the straw. It was a true allele result. And it was this defendant's DNA on the straw with a mixture of someone who the expert testified is not a male relative. He could not be on that straw. So what we have heard is truly a mix between mischaracterization of the evidence and the magic pixie dust defense. There is no reasonable explanation for all of this evidence other than he is guilty of every single count in this indictment. And the you should acquit him because Tejasvi only saw the rim of the hat. That completely ignores that there is a head on the hat. That is desperate. And she said herself, he peeked. I see him peeping in my window in the body cam video. He is guilty of that, which shows his state of mind. And her aggravated assault intent to rape truly is what I thought it would be, which is he killed her, but he didn't try to rape her. Her underwear is torn. And I know Your Honor is an experienced jurist. There are multiple cases out there in the state of Georgia that disheveled clothing alone is enough to support a conviction for aggravated assault with intent to rape. But we have more than that because we have his motive 73 minutes before, and we have evidence of her clothes going in two separate directions. So those are, as my old trial partner used to say, just ink in the water. That's just to distract the court. The defendants, our evidence isn't based upon him having exclusive access to the phone. We never said that. She said that. What we have said is he had the phone that day, and there's no evidence to contradict that testimony. In order for you to find him not guilty, you would have to ignore all the evidence. They're saying, don't believe the DNA, it's not reliable. Don't believe the fingerprints, it's not reliable. And by the way, Tim Stewart covered in the true allele, or excuse me, the Albert fingerprint hearing, that it is not unusual to not get an APHIS hit, but still do a hand-to-hand comparison and have a match. And his results, if you're at least a bit skeptical about them, and you shouldn't be based on his experience and his training and the methodology and the board that he created and how he explained how he got there, were blind peer reviewed by another completely different examiner who came to the same conclusion. This is reliable evidence. It's reliable forensic evidence. And then they're like, oh, well, don't believe the digital evidence because you can't believe that either. There's no reason for you not to believe all the evidence in this case that's been put before you. And when you look at all of it together, it has only one reasonable explanation, is that he is guilty of everything in this indictment. And for the past week, Ms. Jackson and I have been fighting for Laken Riley every day in this courtroom. We're done. Our work is done. And we turn this case over to you to make a decision on all of this evidence in this case. And we are asking you in your decision to render a verdict that speaks the truth about what happened that day, on the 22nd day of February, 2024, when this man took the life of an innocent woman, just going about her business, living her best life for no reason.
Nope.
It's senseless. And only you can end it. We're asking you to find him guilty of every single count in this indictment, to bring justice to Laken, her family, her friends, Tejasvi, and your entire community here in Athens. Thank you, Your Honor.
You all want to review the verdict form again. It's the same one you looked at yesterday, but you're welcome to look at it again.
Why does he have flight socks on or transportation socks on?
I don't know.
We'll take 15-minute recess.
15-minute recess.
Oh, shit. I mean, suit. Sorry about the S word, but yeah, that's he's like, look, I want to get to lunch.
He would be done in 15 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the defense had to do what they had to do, but what they did was exactly right. What the state's attorney said, they mischaracterized a lot of the evidence. It basically got up to, well, maybe Odinist did it, but with no backing or factual claims. It's a bad case. You should have just stood up there and said, please go through and very carefully check each of, the elements that are required in convicting on this charge. Please take your time. Please look at it with an open mind. There are some discrepancies that we'd like to bring up, and don't be a snarky butthole about it. But then you just say, we hold the state to their burden, and sit down.
Yeah.
They gotta do what
Hey.
they gotta do.
Yeah.
Pixie, get to bed.
Oh yeah, what time
But
is
the
it?
facts were not on their side, that's for sure.
It's 5 plus 8. It's 11:30, 11:15. Swear the
Pixie.
donation. Thank you.
Thank you, Jedi Jess. I'm going to need at least 15 swear jars for the Susan Smith parole hearing stream.
Yeah, I mean, usually when I see the bench trials, though, the judges don't come back that quick. They actually take a day. Well, sometimes
Yeah,
that one that I seen, he gave like a date. Like he said,
Yeah.
I'll be back on the 15th or something like that.
Well, or maybe he's taking a 15-minute recess to then give them a timeline, but I think it's a 15-minute deliberation.
Yeah. That's
Let me look
We
up
don't
if
know.
Georgia is a same-day sentencing.
I don't think they are, but yeah.
Yes, the sentence, he could have just shown them the verdict form, taken it down on his table, written guilty, not guilty, and give it back to them and said, this is my verdict. It's there's no requirement for deliberation.
And then from what just Google says, for misdemeanor charges, you may be charged on the same day. In the case of felony convictions, sentencing is typically a separate court date so that it can give them time for the investigation that shows what they did and how their childhood was.
Pre-sentencing
And
hearing.
yeah, I was like, what is the word that I'm supposed to say? And I've only watched 9 bajillion trials. Don't you just love it when you've been doing this for about a year and you're like, what is that thing when they close? What's that
Right.
called?
Yeah. No, she wasn't sentenced the same day.
No.
She came back.
Yeah. I don't even think we covered the sentencing because it wasn't televised.
We did. We did.
I remember clearly that we covered the sentencing hearing. It was really good.
Yeah.
I was called
we
a
did.
racist. That's the most I've been called racist in a lot of times, and it still pops up every now and again that someone watches that coverage and called me a racist.
We don't really like to cover a lot of sentencing because it gets a little crazy. Because
I don't like
the victim statement stuff that where they get to tell suggest to the judge what they believe the person should, and how crazy it gets sometimes. I'm not a big fan of that, but
Yeah, those are the hard days. Those are the days where I really wish I didn't cover the trial, but I feel like it's, at least for me, it's, respecting the victim because they got to talk kind of vicariously, but also respecting the family. And, even the defendant's family. I mean, a lot of these families are good families and they had, jerk faces that came out of it. So it's not a fun day.
We watched that shooting up in New Hampshire, or wherever it was. And since then, I haven't covered an impact statement hearing because that was so horribly, horribly wrong. I don't mind that people are religious. I think people should choose their religion,
that
and
one.
if they choose to be heathens, Christians, Asa believers, Muslim, whatever you want. But the hypocrisy
Oh,
of a
well,
family whose kid hung out with a convicted felon, talking about, oh, he was doing so much for the church, and him and God were like this, and God, we always lived by God's words, and He said we should forgive. But I hope you burn in hell. Go f yourself. You're such a bad person. Your son harassed women. Then he talked his buddy into slugging someone in the face. Then he re-engaged him twice and ended up with a few new ventilation holes in them. Don't bring the Lord into that part of it, because I'm pretty sure the Lord didn't anywhere. I haven't been watching a Bible on a budget with Jamie a couple of Sundays, but I'm pretty sure she hasn't covered that part where it says, be a massive hypocrite and do everything against what you just said. I hate it when they, well, I'm such a good Christian, and for good Christians, we should forgive, but I can't forgive you. Well, then you're not a good Christian. If you want
it's
to,
hard. Yeah, it's hard when sanctimony comes in, but and people, look, I've seen it firsthand. When someone passes, you have two routes. You can remember the good parts and remember the truth, or you can make them a saint. And that can be really hard for people who didn't see their saint side so much. So boy, have I lived that.
Yeah.
And I get
think
it. I get it.
I think it was hard for us too, because a lot of the cases that we cover, we truly believe the person, it was a wrong
Yeah.
verdict. So when you see somebody and like, I
Yeah.
mean, Zachary Anderson is a good example for me. I don't believe, and then they get to go up there and tell him to
Yeah.
burn in hell, and it's like,
yeah, he
it's
was
hard.
almost
It's hard to
attacking him.
listen to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it wasn't that person who called me a racist in that case. She just implied I was a racist the other day. So, but I think it's funny for a person who is so sensitive about race calling me an ape. Could you imagine if it had been the other way around? I wouldn't have a YouTube
Yeah.
channel today.
It is profoundly hypocritical the way some people use it as both a shield and a club.
Yeah. Yeah, that case was, he should never, I don't even know how much he got, because Jamie and I was starting it, and did we last 10 minutes? I don't even think we last. I got so mad at that.
Got mad, turned it
Yeah.
off, but I continued to watch it, and the judge even said, because of his size and the kid's size, they gave him I think they gave him almost 30 something years, because
Yeah.
he was bigger than the guy, so he should have showed restraint basically and done nothing, even though
that's
he was the one
What's
getting attacked. I was just like, whoa,
that's so dumb.
yeah.
I mean, they can
He
pull
was a
out
little
anything.
guy. It doesn't matter how much he was beating on you. You're like 6'5". You should have did nothing. It's like, okay.
Well, by that logic, then, Jose should not have done anything to Laken, because she was littler than him. I mean, or Laken shouldn't have fought back because he was bigger, and she should have known that she was just going to get clobbered. I mean,
It's dumb. Yeah.
it's the dumbest logic.
Yeah, but I think it's just a rank hypocrisy in it, because I get you're mad, but don't put on a cloak because you want to sound all good and mighty in front of the judge, so he can be more angry when he's doing the sentencing. I get really mad about that, because that's hypocrisy. And one of the things the Bible says is sin is hypocrisy. And I would say, by tacking on God or Jesus to your hatred, you're taking their name in vain.
Yeah, it's a call to authority that, again, is subjective for most. I mean, you say that to an atheist, they're going to be like, I don't care. It only has power if for the audience that you think it's going for. And this is why so many people are turned off, because you have the loud, obnoxious people always talking about Jeebus, but then they're like, don't sit me next to so and so. I don't like them. I mean, it is. It's one of the biggest things that turns people off.
Did I miss that we got raided by a recovery addict or something? If we did, hello all.
I
We
might
are
have
waiting
missed it too.
for the judge to come back. Both
I didn't
sides
see
did
it
the
either.
closing arguments, and the judge says 15-minute resets. It's a bench trial, so the judge could come back with a verdict now. We don't know.
I do hope he goes ham in the old Southern way. Just, not biblical, but absolutely.
Yeah.
Um,
The case is out of New Hampshire. It's a self-defense case where a guy was punched in the face, threatened multiple times, and then air raided a guy. Recovery went frozen.
oh no.
Well, he'll be back. He just
Yeah,
have to restart his router.
Yeah, he's like super smart with all the computer stuff. I've dreamed of his little setup, but I can barely work my Stream Deck, so I've dreamed of it.
Couple of things before I announce the verdict. I want to point out that
we have a verdict.
Typically, my role in a trial, in a criminal
Okay,
trial,
I'm going to share
is
out
to
that we've
manage
got a
the
verdict.
process. And the fact finding is done by a jury. That wasn't the case in this trial. I managed the process, try to, and I was also the finder of fact, and that is somewhat of a different role than we typically see.
So he has been covering this case, right? Yeah, I think he started covering it yesterday. So you are up to speed with all of it, I hope. Or else just ask. But we have a verdict already.
I'll tell you that you may have seen me. I make notes during the trial. I probably filled up 2 legal pads full of notes during the trial. But the closings, I want to just listen, and that's what I did. But I wrote down 2 things in the closing. One was a statement by Ms. Ross that the evidence was overwhelming and powerful. And then I also wrote down what Ms. Beck said, that I'm required to set aside my emotions. That's the same thing that we tell jurors in what and would give them their job. I would. That's the way I have to approach this, and I did. Both of those statements are correct. I'll now announce the verdict. In the state of Georgia versus Jose Antonio Ibarra, case SU 24 CR 0323, count 1, malice murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 2, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 3, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 4, felony murder. I find the defendant guilty. Count 5, kidnapping with bodily injury. I find the defendant guilty. Count 6, aggravated assault with intent to rape. I find the defendant guilty.
Yeah, that's the only one he might have gotten out of.
Count 7, aggravated battery. I find the defendant guilty. Count 8, obstructing or hindering a 911 call. I find the defendant guilty. Count 9, tampering with evidence. I find the defendant guilty. Count 10, peeping Tom. I find the defendant guilty. I certainly will allow both sides to look at this if you want to do it. The next step is sentencing. I'm prepared to go forward with that now, or if either side suggests that you need a few minutes, an hour break or something to do that, then I'll certainly do that as well. Consider that.
Just get it over with. You can hear the families
Yeah.
breaking down.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, what a rush of relief that your daughter finally got justice.
I understand. I understand. We will recess till 12:30. Recess till 12:30. Will that work?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
I think they should have asked him to go on with it, because she will compose herself, but it'll have taken 5 minutes and it'll be over with.
Yeah.
I get that, but I also see needing to have a couple minutes to process this, to be able to be composed. I don't know that I would be able to be composed. I might have to, and I would, Lord knows I would stand for my child, my daughter, but would I be able to read a letter and be eloquent about all the things that this person has taken away from me? I'd need about an hour, because I think the first thing I just want to do is collapse in the bathroom crying that we got through this. And then I'd want to probably leap over the lectern, but that's between you, me, and Jesus.
Yeah. Jesus got the wheels and he gave me the boost.
Well, Jesus also flipped some tables, and that's the Jesus I'm channeling today.
But no surprises.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No. I do wonder what his sentencing speech will be. I think this judge is very measured. I think he's seen a lot of ish. I think he's calloused, but I think this is the time where he gets to kind of say, and again, be a voice, and why the state is punishing them. Quiet and sassy, yes, the family, they're adjourning for about an hour and a half to give them some time to compose themselves, and then it will be, oh, we get elevator music?
Oh, they've been doing that lately.
Yeah.
On Court TV.
Oh, fancy.
I think it's kind of an audio cue, so people we have to come back now when the music stops.
That's a good idea.
But in an hour, I've set up a new stream, because then we can
yes.
all go get some food, get ready, instead of keep going, and then there's victim impact statements, and we can't get out of here for 2 hours. So I think we'll take a short recess and be back
recess.
Jamie, you will take a pregnant pause.
I guess.
Hi, y'all. My name is Mo. How you doing? That's who I'm going to be for next Halloween.
I'm Jimmy. How y'all doing? Yes.
When did you first meet Maureen?
This is in the summer of 14.
And where did you meet her?
Oh, Jimmy.
I mean, I'm going to have to get used to the beard, but I'm going to train.
What a good guy.
I love that guy.
Yeah, he seems so jovial. Like, I would want to meet him, and I'm not usually a people-y person, but he seems like a cool guy.
He does. I'm Jimmy. How y'all doing?
Like, just talking to you about a Ram truck, and I have no idea, but I'm just sitting there listening because he's so sweet. I'm like, oh, you got an 8-cylinder? How many cans of soup does it haul? Like,
But remember why he was in the case. He sold her a car and got a little nookie.
well, I mean, did he
He
make
was
her pay
sucked in
sticker
by those
price?
short shorts and those cowboy boots. That's what he had said.
How else does anyone shop for cars? I don't pay sticker price. Daisy Dukes, that's what you do. You go to the dealership and you're like, I'm a dumb girl. No, this market value is lower than that. I'm going to need you to get off a sticker price right now. These boots were made for walking, and I will go over to Ray Skillman. You over here at Johnny's Hyundai doesn't give me a deal.
No, yeah, for us, yeah, they'll be back at 6:30 our time. So go make you some lefske
Yes.
and have some myseost, and everything will be fine. All y'all will be back in an hour. I will redirect my stream to the later stream. I've sent Mo the StreamYard link if she has it set up already.
Nope, I'm
How
getting
long has
that.
the process been? When did the incident happen? February this year. Thank you so much, Roro, for becoming a YouTube member. Oh. Is the verdict in guilty? Guilty in all counts. On all counts, I think it is.
Yeah.
So we are just getting the sentencing already at 12:30. So please come back if I doesn't have his internet up. You're more than welcome. Do all the YouTube things we don't want to talk about because people hate it when people say it. So do we. Yeah, but subliminally it makes them do it. I don't care.
And
Drift time is over.
you know, if you want to send this out, people might have been following this case, didn't realize it was going on, or, you know, it gets busy. If they want to watch it, I know this isn't the fun part, but let them know that we do have a verdict, and, you know, share the love, share the Church of Mo, and what do you call your members? Cream pies?
Muffin tops.
Muffin
and
tops,
cream
good.
pies.
So, you know, spread the word of Muffin Tops and the Church of Mo. It's a small thing, but we really appreciate it. So if you could, that would be awesome, but you are not obligated to, because goodness knows I'm not your mom.
Jamie is.
I do have no responsibility. to
And on the
anybody.
way out, thank you, Holly Mac, for becoming a member again. So nice to see you back. Cream pies unite. Well, and we love all y'all, all 200 of you who are here right now across our 3 platforms. Please come back in an hour where we hopefully will not hear too many words other than life in prison times 5, if everything is good.
What exhibit are you referring to?
I'm going to make this 100, Your Honor.
All right.
100. Because it is 100% correct.
Checking your other.
So you literally built a cannon?
Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Go
All right, I'm in love.
back. Please do that again. Oh, that was the cutest thing I've ever seen.
While I'm waiting for this, did you, whether it's true or not, believe that Mr. Randolph had slept with your wife?
I wouldn't care.
You wouldn't have cared?
Seeking it.
Did you believe he had slept with your wife?
No,
Did you believe he slept with your mother-in-law?
probably did. Everybody has.
So